Chapter 804. Bring him over. Chu Ruoyu gave the order. The people from the great clans all let out a long sigh of relief. Someone immediately volunteered and quickly left. The small courtyard fell into silence once again. Although the experts of the 5 great clans had surrounded the place, Wei Wuguang and the others were trapped in the formation. Their lives were in Lu Ye's hands, so they did not dare to have any rash action. However, it could be seen from the constant exchange of gazes that their hearts were far from as calm as they appeared on the surface. They must have some thoughts. The 5 great clans had controlled the Silver Snake Valley secret realm for nearly 1,000 years. Here, they were the heavens, the rulers. No one dared to resist him. When had they ever been so disrespected? Not to mention that the experts of the clan had been captured and their lives were out of their control. Even if Lu Yi had held back, he had already touched the bottom line of the 5 great clans. However, his previous ruthless style had undoubtedly made the 5 great clans fearful. Therefore, at this moment, no one took the initiative to say anything. They only angered him and made their clansmen suffer. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, it was only the time it took to drink a cup of tea before Ing Wui, who was tied up in a wide range of purchasing tools, was brought over. It could be seen that Ing Wui had suffered a bit. At this moment, not only was his clothes naked, his face was also bruised and swollen. It was no wonder that the Silver Snake Valley wanted to inquire about him and Lu Yi, so they naturally had to use some methods. However, the cultivators from the 9 regions were all tough, especially the core disciples of the top sects like Ing Wuji. Even if he was against Lu Ye's camp, how could he betray him at this time? Therefore, even though he had been humiliated, the Silver Snake Valley had not been able to find out any useful information from Ing Wuji. After being brought to the small courtyard and seeing Lu Yi sitting there, Ing Wuji's eyes couldn't help but moisten. He was truly moved. He had thought that he had fallen this time, and he had not expected Lu Yi to come and save him. After all, everyone was enemies in the 9 regions. Yes, he had even tried to kill Lu Yi before. Logically speaking, Lu Yi could completely abandon him. The reason he was captured had nothing to do with Lu Yi. It was entirely because of his own incompetence and lack of vigilance. Who would have thought that Lu Yi would actually save him? Moreover, looking at the huge formation in the small courtyard, Lu Yi was actually fighting against him by himself. The secret compilation of the Book of Resistance, Q Matter? Lu Yi raised his head and looked at him. I won't die. Ing Wuji grinned at him. When Lu Yi raised his head and raised his hand, the spiritual power of the formation that trapped Wei Wuguang and the others surged. Long Yu, who was injured, cried out in alarm. It was directly thrown out by an invisible force. A Long family cultivator with sharp eyes and nimble hands leaped up and caught Long Yu. After a brief examination, he discovered that although Long Yu's injuries were serious, he was still injured. Now that his life was no longer in danger, he nodded slightly at the Long family's patriarch. Let him go. Lu Yi looked at Chu Ruoyu. Chu Ruoyu frowned. Your Excellency, do you mean to exchange one life for another? A life for a life, fair and just. Lu Yi stood up slowly. He stood with his hands on his saber. As he stood up, the hearts of many experts in the small courtyard couldn't help but tighten. When he was sitting there, no one felt anything, but when he stood up, many cultivators felt something. He felt an immense pressure bearing down on him, as if the one standing in front of him was not a human, but an ancient ferocious beast that was about to devour him. Their hearts trembled. Or, you can also choose not to exchange. As Lu Yi spoke, the weapon box at his waist buzzed, and 3 Imperial equipment streaks of light shot out, landing squarely on Feng Wuji and the other's Supergate T. His feet were flat, but no matter how hard he tried, Chu Xiu would still reach him. Murderous intent. No one dared to doubt him. At this moment, if Chu Ruoyu dared to say the word tenant, someone in this small courtyard would die on the spot. Calm down, little friend. Wait a moment. The group of people cried out in alarm, afraid that Lu Yi would really kill those people. Chu Ruoyu stared coldly at Lu Yi, his heart full of frustration. He was also an experienced person, but ever since he came to this small courtyard. When he saw this youth, he had always been led by the nose by the other party. How could he be willing to accept this? But now, even if they surrounded this place so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through, their situation was inferior. The youth in front of him had a ruthless and decisive style, which could be seen from how he left 3 holes in chew on his body when he was slightly displeased. Seeing this, if the experts of the great families died here because of him, then he, as the master of the secret realm, would probably have to abdicate in advance. Let him go. Chu Ruoyu waved his hand. As the spiritual power surged, the spirit artifact that bound Ying Wuji was taken away. Ying Wuji went to Shui Yong's side and turned his head. He felt a great sense of security, and his words were also in the area. He was angry. Where are my things? Although he had his own storage space like Lu Yi and didn't have many things in his storage space, he couldn't just let it be for free. Others took advantage of him. Give it back to him. Chu Ruoyu ordered again. Someone untied a storage bag from his waist and threw it to Ying Wuji. He checked it for a moment and then raised his head. There's also a sound transmission stone. Chu Ruoyu raised his hand and threw Ying Wuji's sound transmission stone back. That's more like it. Ying Wuji snorted coldly. Dong. A sound rang out. Lu Yi held the Panshan saber in front of him and folded his hands on the hilt. Now we can talk about other things. Chu Ruoyu looked vigilant. What do you want to talk about? The method to contact the other 2 secret realms or find the entrance to those 2 secret realms. Also, we have to leave this place. Inside. As soon as he said this, not only did Chu Ruoyu frown, even the other cultivators in the small courtyard were puzzled. The 2 of you aren't from those 2 secret realms? Someone asked. Their new first Huang Zhe, Madleaf, and Ying Wuji came out of the duo Su Si family's 4th secret, Ruzue Lu Jesher Palace's secret realm, and Zhang Shilai was very impressive. It seemed like that wasn't the case. If they came from one of these 2 secret realms, why would they come to the Silver Snake Valley to inquire about those things? But if this person didn't come from those 2 secret realms, where could he come from? How could a stronghold outside nurture such a person? This was simply inconceivable. Chu Ruoyu also found it hard to believe, but if the other party was deliberately mystifying, it was obviously unnecessary. Many thoughts flashed through his mind, and he said in a deep voice, "Little friend, you're making things difficult. The 3 great secret realms of the human race are all extremely hidden. In the void, even if the people in this secret realm leave, they have to arrive at a specific place at a specific time and use spiritual objects to receive them. Only by guiding them can they open the door. How could my Silver Snake Valley have a way to find the other 2 secret realm portals? If there really was one, then those 2 wouldn't be at ease. What's the way to contact them?" Chu Ruoyu said, "It has always been the 3 great secret realms emissaries who meet outside that there will be some communication. There's no way to contact them, so we can't help you with what you're asking for." He didn't tell the truth, because the 3 great secret ants had an agreement in the early years that they would each send people to a certain secret realm within a year. Thus, they would exchange some information with each other. Or they would talk about some important matters. Of course, he didn't need to tell Lu Yiyan about this kind of thing. Moreover, it was useless to say it because there was still a long time before the next 3 great secret realms. There was still more than a year before the 3 secret realms met. However, the Silver Snake Valley did not take the initiative to contact the other 2 secret realms, nor did they find the 2 secret realm portals. Ability. Those 2 didn't have it either. Lu Yiyan listened quietly and observed his expression. He felt that this old man didn't seem to be lying. He secretly had a headache. He had only walked through 1 secret realm, and there were already so many twists and turns. How could he find the other 2? As for sending the 2 of you away, there's no problem. Chu Ruoyu paused. This old man also has a request. Speak. Other than letting those 4 people go, this old man wants the refining method of the sound transmission stone. From all the previous events, it could be concluded that the young man with the saber was able to negotiate the legendary area stone. As for the spirit pill, Chu Ruoyu didn't have the chance to give it to him. The refining method of the spirit pill was too interesting. It depended on the refining level of the alchemist and the supply of raw materials, so even if he got it, it might not be of much use. Moreover, the two people in front of him might not know the refining method of the spirit pill. Wuxia laughed. "Old man, it's not a good thing to be too greedy. It's just a small request, I hope you can fulfill it." Chu Ruoyu ignored him and only looked at Lu Yi. Sure. What Chu Ruoyu and the cultivators of the 5 great clans didn't expect was that Lu Yi agreed so readily. After agreeing, he immediately took out a blank jade slip, activated his spiritual power, and imprinted the refining method of the sound transmission stone on it. After that, he tossed the jade slip to Chu Ruoyu. So simple? Chu Ruoyu was stunned for a moment, almost suspecting that Lu Yi was up to something. He quickly immersed his mind and checked the jade slip. He looked at the contents, but couldn't find anything special. He didn't know much about refining weapons, so he passed the jade slip to a cultivator beside him to let him check if it was real or fake. That cultivator checked for a while before saying uncertainly, "There should be no problem." There was no problem. Lu Yi didn't hide the refining method of the sound transmission stone. As for whether the Silver Snake Valley could refine it, it wasn't something he needed to worry about. This thing wasn't difficult to refine, but it wasn't easy either. Lu Yi could easily refine it because he had the foundation of a spirit tattooist. Moreover, this wasn't something valuable, so Lu Yi didn't want to be entangled with them. It was more important to leave this place early and find the other 2 secret realms. The 4 of them. Chu Ruoyu looked at Wei Wuguang and the others who were trapped in the small courtyard. Lu Yi raised his hand, and the array flags were retrieved. In the small courtyard, the array was lifted instantly. Chu Ruoyu's eyes twitched, and he looked at Lu Yi meaningfully. "It seems that you have absolute confidence in your own strength." Confidence? To hand over the refining method of the sound transmission stone so easily, and to let them go so easily, it showed that the young man in front of him had nothing to fear. This made Chu Ruoyu a little uncomfortable. All kinds of dangerous thoughts surged in his heart, but he couldn't make up his mind. First, the 2 of us only want to discuss this place. Of course, you can try to make us stay. Shang Ji looked calmly. He was Ruoyu. The 2 of them looked at each other. One was full of vitality, the other was as deep as the abyss. The atmosphere in the small courtyard immediately became hostile. After a long while, Chu Ruoyu let out a long breath. Heroes come from the youth. Chapter 805. Wuxia almost thought that the 2 sides were going to fight. After all, Lu Yi had released the hostages in his hands, and the Silver Snake Valley was no longer restrained. Instead, the 2 of them were surrounded by many experts of the 5 great clans, and the situation was bad. Of course, he did not doubt that Lu Yi had the ability to kill his way out of here, but he himself might not have the ability. He had already made up his mind that if they really fought, he must follow Lu Yi closely and must not fall into the hands of the 5 great clans again. Previously, he was careless and was captured. That was because he was stupid. If he was captured again, he would not have the face to ask Lu Yi to save him again. But who would have thought that after looking at each other for a long time, after a long sigh from Chu Ruoyu, the expected battle did not happen. That long sigh was not only Chu Ruoyu's praise for Lu Yi, but also his concession. He clearly realized one thing. If they really fought, the cultivators gathered around the small courtyard would probably suffer heavy casualties. So under Chu Ruoyu's command, a group of experts of the 5 great clans surrounded Lu Yi and Wuxia and walked towards the direction of the door. It was both an escort and surveillance. After an hour, they had arrived at the location of the door of the secret realm. The cultivators on guard duty here obviously didn't know what was going on. When they saw a large group of people flying over from afar, they were all startled. When they went forward to ask for the reason, they understood that they were actually sending the 2 intruders out of the secret realm. For a moment, they were indignant. For so many years, other than the Silver Snake Valley who had brought in some humans from outside, no one had ever been tempted like this before. For so many years, no one had ever intruded into the Silver Snake Valley other than the human clan that he had brought in from the outside. No matter what the intruder's background was or what his purpose was, this was a blatant invasion and a slap to the face of the Silver Snake Valley. so it was hard for them to imagine why the higher-ups would reach such an agreement with these two intruders. But since this matter had been decided, they could not interfere and could only follow orders. The so-called door was not a substantial door, but the space here was relatively weak, and there were means left by the great cultivators of the Silver Snake Valley in the early years that could be slightly controlled. In this way, the cultivators of the Silver Snake Valley had to pass through here if they wanted to enter the secret realm. I'll let you know. It's not easy to open the door, and it might take some time. I'll have to ask the two of you to wait. After landing, Chu Ruyu said to Lu Yi and ordered the cultivators on duty, "Open the door." The group of cultivators on duty accepted the order and immediately got busy. Lu Yi stood there quietly. Unlike Ying Wuji, who was constantly on guard, Lu Yi's posture was relaxed, as if he didn't care about the gazes that were staring at him from all directions. But the more he acted like this, the more the cultivators from the 5 great clans didn't dare to act rashly. They didn't know how strong Lu Yi was, but they knew how strong Long Yu and Wei Wuguang were. This kind of person who could casually defeat Long Yu and Wei Wuguang and even easily capture them, how could his strength be weak? No one doubted that if someone really dared to provoke him, that seemingly harmless figure would definitely take action. As time passed, Lu Yi frowned. Too slow. It had been an hour since they arrived here, but the door still hadn't opened. From what he could see, the cultivators on duty who were in charge of opening the door were deliberately delaying it. He really didn't know how to open the door, but he could tell whether they were doing their best or not. Chu Ruyu said, "The opening of the door has always been like this. Little friend, please. If the door doesn't open in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the two of us won't leave." Lu Yi turned his head and looked at Chu Ruoyu coldly. Such an obvious threat immediately caused the cultivators around to burst into an uproar. Even Chu Ruoyu narrowed his eyes. "It's good that you won't leave, it's good that you won't leave." Ying Wuji grinned, looking eager to try. Ever since he had arrived at the secret territory, he had been captured and imprisoned. After that, he had been tortured. His heart was filled with anger and he had nowhere to vent it. If Lu Yi really wanted to start a massacre here, then it would be a great opportunity for him to exact his revenge. He would also let the 5 great families know why he, Ying Wuji, had been able to obtain the 16th place in the Cloud River contest. Amidst the commotion, Chu Ruoyu raised his hand slightly, and the surrounding noise immediately quieted down. He avoided Lu Ye's gaze and looked at a cultivator on duty next to the door. "In Kong, if you don't care about the cost, can you open the door in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn?" Chu and Kong pondered for a moment, then raised his head and said, "Yes." "Then, open it in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." "Yes." Chu and Kong accepted the order and shouted, "Move faster." "Then, open it in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." "Yes." Chu and Kong accepted the order and shouted, "Move faster." Only then did Chu Ruoyu look at Lu Yi. "Little friend, can you do as you wish?" "I hope so." The cultivators on duty indeed moved faster. Specks of golden light began to spread, outlining the shape of the door in the void. Lu Yi divided his attention, observing the door while remaining vigilant of all movements. Since things had reached this point, he didn't want to make any mistakes. Although he had reached a deal with the Silver Snake Valley, he could faintly feel that the Silver Snake Valley was up to something. It was definitely not just because they were afraid of him and wanted to send him away quickly. Looking at the door and thinking about everything that had happened before, he vaguely had some guesses in his heart. "How long will it take to pass through?" Lu Yi asked. Chu Ryu said, "When the door is stable, you can pass through. Of course, if little friend wants to leave now, that's fine too. However, under the situation where the door is unstable, there might be some unexpected situations." "For example?" "That's hard to say. In the end, this door is a method left behind by the great cultivators from 1,000 years ago. Now, we can only activate it slightly and don't know the reason." Chu Ruoyu reached out and stroked his beard, keeping it a secret. Lu Yi nodded slightly and suddenly turned to look at Chu Ruoyu. "What's outside the door?" Chu Ruyu's stroking of his beard paused imperceptibly and followed up. Outside the door is naturally the Wuxia continent. The corners of Lu Ye's mouth curled up slightly and a sneer appeared. He took a step forward and walked towards the door. Wuji had been paying attention to his movements and hurriedly followed after seeing this. The corners of Lu Ye's mouth curled up slightly and a sneer appeared. He took a step forward and walked towards the door. Wuji had been paying attention to his movements and hurriedly followed after him. Chu Ruoyu's expression changed. Little friend, the door is not stable yet. There are many risks involved in passing through at this time. Please reconsider. Lu Yi pretended not to hear him and his figure flickered as he stepped into the door. The golden door trembled slightly and showed signs of collapsing, but it quickly stabilized. Following closely behind Lu Yi, Wuji also stepped into the door and the two of them completely disappeared from everyone's sight. Chu Ruoyu's face sank and he turned to Chu Ankong and asked, "Where is the door?" The others also paid close attention. The reason why they agreed to send Lu Yi and Wuji away was because Chu Ruoyu and the other leaders of the 5 great families had their own plans. On one hand, they were afraid of Lu Ye's strength and did not want him to continue staying in Silver Snake Valley's sealed realm. How could they allow others to sleep next to their bed? If such a person stayed in Silver Snake Valley, no one would be safe, so it was better to deal with him as soon as possible. However, although these people's strength wasn't too bad, they had long lost the courage and boldness to fight to the death, so whether it was Chu Ruoyu or the other leaders, none of them were willing to engage Lu Yi and Wuji in a direct confrontation. If they wanted to deal with these two intruders but did not want to have any direct conflict with them, then there was only one way. Borrowing the hands of a corpse race powerhouse. The sealed realm drifted in the void and did not reveal itself. Although the trajectory of its movement was not fixed, there were still traces to follow. Each of the 5 great families had a cultivator who was responsible for calculating the location of the door. The person in charge of this was Chu Ankong. Opening the door would not be easy and would take a lot of time, but it was just a cover for Chu Ruoyu. Opening the door of the sealed realm did require some resources, but as long as it was done properly, the door could be opened in a dozen breaths. If it really took a long time, how could the envoys return safely? Therefore, when Chu Ruoyu said these words, Chu Ankong immediately understood his intentions. It was clear that he wanted to open the door at a specific location and send the 2 intruders out. After that, things were simple. Chu Ankong secretly calculated the location of the door, chose a suitable place, and kept delaying the time. But the result was not as he wished. The boy with the saber obviously noticed something. He not only urged Chu Ankong, but also moved before the door was completely stable. So the position of the door was not very ideal. Chu Ankong said, "It should be near Lin Sun's tomb." After thousands of years of accumulation, the Silver Snake Valley knew which places on the Wuxia continent could safely open the door and where there were hidden dangers, but at least they knew most of them. Otherwise, the sealed realm could not open the door in a safe place every time to avoid some dangerous places. Lin Sun's tomb. A group of people heard this and took a breath of cold air. The corpse race was also transformed by the human clan. Lin Sun seemed to be a strong man on the Wuxia continent hundreds of years ago. Master Lin Sun. A group of people heard this and took a breath of cold air. The corpse race was also transformed by the human clan. Lin Sun seemed to be a strong man on the Wuxia continent hundreds of years ago. After turning into a corpse race, not only did his combat strength not decrease, but he also gained many abilities of the corpse race, which was extremely difficult to deal with. There were many strong men in the corpse race. The most powerful one was naturally the Golden Corpse King, and there were several corpse commanders under him who were also very powerful. Lin Sun's strength might not be as good as that of the corpse commanders, but it was not too far away. He had tens of thousands of corpses under his command, and they usually lay in the tomb to raise their corpses. Lin Sun's tomb was also listed as a forbidden place by the Silver Snake Valley. Within 30,000 miles, no one dared to open the door easily, for fear that Lin Sun would notice and come to find them. Although the opening of the door does not make a big noise, as long as it is not too far away, it should be able to alarm Lin Sun. Chu Ankong said with a look of pity, "If we can delay it for half a day, We can directly open the door in the territory of the Silver Corpse commander, and the two of them will definitely die. Chu Ruoyu shook his head slowly. This is also the best result. If we really open the door in the territory of the Silver Corpse commander, it may not be a good thing for us. Let's use the heavenly mirror and see how those two brats who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth will die. He clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud. Chapter 806. The Divine Mirror was also a treasure left behind by ancient cultivators. The cultivators in the secret realm could monitor the situation outside with this treasure. Under normal circumstances, before the Silver Snake Valley opened the door, they would activate the Divine Mirror to check the outside world. After confirming that there were no Corpse Clan ambushes outside, they would open the door. This time, in order to avoid giving themselves away, they did not activate it in advance. Lu Yi and Ing Wuji, the two outsiders, naturally knew nothing about this. As soon as Chu Ruoyu finished speaking, the cultivators on duty worked together to take out a treasure that looked like a bronze mirror and poured their spiritual power into it. Very quickly, ripples appeared in the copper mirror. It was as if a stone had been thrown into a calm lake, causing ripples to appear. As the ripples slowly stabilized, a scene of fishing from a high vantage point appeared in the bronze mirror. The group of people looked over and two figures immediately appeared in their field of vision. It was Lu Yi and Ing Wuji. Dozens of miles away from the two of them, there was a huge yellow cloud that rolled and wriggled, sweeping over like a sandstorm. Even through the heaven-reflecting mirror, the Silver Snake Valley cultivators could feel the monstrous ferocious power in the yellow cloud. Lin Sun was indeed alarmed. Someone was delighted. Now, these two can't live even if they want to. Valley Master's plan is unparalleled. He took care of them without bloodshed. How dare they break into the secret realm of our Silver Snake Valley? They really don't know what's good for them. Seduso CC first. It's a pity. These two people are quite strong. If they could be used by our Silver Snake Valley. The person who spoke slowly shook his head. Forget about the captured one. The strength of the youth with the sword was not quite good, but a little too strong. Even if such a person was used by them, they would not dare to rest assured. On the other side, Lu Yi and Ing Wuji turned their heads to look in the direction of the yellow cloud. Ing Wuji's expression immediately changed. This movement? It's a zombie horde. When he came to the Wushuang continent, he suffered a great loss at the hands of the zombie horde, so he had some psychological trauma. Especially at this moment, he was not in a good state. Looking at the scale of the zombie horde, it seemed to be more magnificent than the ones he had encountered before. It could be seen that this zombie horde was tyrannical. Why aren't you running? Ing Wuji glanced at Lu Yi, only to see Lu Yi looking up at the sky, staring at a certain spot in the sky. Puzzled, he asked, "What are you looking at?" Lu Yi didn't say anything. The strength of his mind made him feel as if he was being spied on. Although he wasn't sure what was going on, he could roughly guess. Inside the secret realm, the people from the Silver Snake Valley were all shocked when they met the deep gaze. He sensed it? Some people found it hard to believe that he could sense the existence of the heavenly reflection mirror. What kind of trick was this young man? Chu Ruoyu's expression also became serious. He had overestimated Lu Ye's strength as much as possible before, but now it seemed that he had still underestimated him. To be able to perceive the divine mirror meant that his mental strength was beyond his imagination. He secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, the mystic realm didn't have any major conflicts with him and fulfilled his requests as much as possible. He was secretly complacent. No matter how strong he was, now that he had alarmed Lin Sun, he was afraid that he would die without a burial place. "Can you run?" Outside the mystic realm, Lu Yi asked faintly after hearing Ing Wuji's urging. "I have to run even if I can't. How about you carry me?" Ing Wuji looked helpless. He had suffered a lot of torture in the dungeon of Wuyuan City. Although his vitality wasn't greatly damaged, his strength was also damaged. If he wanted to escape, he might not be able to escape. Lu Yi didn't speak. Under Ing Wuji's surprised gaze, he took a step forward. The next moment, The spiritual energy around his body surged, and the fiery red spiritual energy spread all over the void. Wuxia couldn't help narrowing his eyes and couldn't look directly at it. The rolling and surging spiritual energy seemed to have a mind of its own. It transformed into a clearly visible yin and yang that quickly intertwined and spread out in all directions. Wuxia, who was wondering what Lu Yi was doing, suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. A great shock spread all over his body, and he suddenly had the illusion that a fierce beast was about to break out of the cage. The dazzling light slowly converged, and the scene in his field of vision was imprinted in his eyes. This is... Wuxia's eyelids suddenly contracted. Looking at it, the spiritual energy surging out of Lu Ye's body was rapidly spreading out, with him as the center, outlining the outline of a huge divine bird. The divine bird was not fully formed, only a rough outline, but its monstrous power made people's hearts tremble. It was hard to imagine what kind of power it would have if it was fully formed. Looking at the divine bird, its body was huge and smooth, with long feathers behind its tail. The unpredictable yin and yang quickly took shape in the body of the divine sense, turning into flesh and blood that filled the body. The spiritual energy surged more and more fiercely. 30 miles away, the zombie horde that had followed the trail rushed over. As if it had also sensed something, the rolling yellow clouds suddenly sped up at this moment. Within the yellow clouds, the figures of the rotting corpses floated and sank. Uncertain. What is this? In the Silver Snake Valley secret realm, a group of cultivators from the 5 great families who were waiting to watch a good show were also shocked. Looking at the fledgling divine bird that suddenly appeared, their eyes were filled with disbelief. Although they were separated by a layer of heaven and earth and couldn't feel the power of the divine bird, just by looking at its size, they could tell that it was definitely a spell that could destroy the heavens and earth. That saber-wielding youth still had such a shocking method? For a time, many people were dripping with cold sweat. Copious spiritual energy flowed out of his body, turning into yin and yang that connected and merged, turning into flesh and blood that filled the divine bird's body, and then the feathers on the divine bird's body began to become vivid. Towering between heaven and earth, endless power filled the air, and the divine bird seemed to have been given life, turning into a living creature. Wuxia had already retreated more than 10 miles, looking at the fiery red divine bird, muttering, "Fire Phoenix." He suddenly remembered something. As a cultivator from the War Province, he had also secretly inquired about Lu Yi, and it seemed to have mentioned this spell. In the hunting ground, his cultivation was low, and he was chased by countless Devil Ridge cultivators. In the end, he had no way to escape and was forced to use a golden body token to protect himself. At that time, he seemed to have activated this spell, and in the desperate situation, he killed many Devil Ridge cultivators and became famous in the Cloud River battlefield. But after that, people analyzed that it was very likely the power of a rare treasure. Otherwise, with Lu Yi's cultivation at that time, how could he activate such a powerful spell? And since the hunting ground, it seemed that no one had seen Lu Yi activate this spell again. Until now, when the Fire Phoenix reappeared in the world, its image was clearly reflected in Wuxia's vision. How could he not understand that this was not the power of a rare treasure at all, but the ability of Lu Yi himself? But, although this spell was strong, it seemed that the time it took to accumulate power was too long. In a real life and death battle with a strong enemy, this spell would not have time to activate. It was also at this moment that Lu Yi had enough time and space to use this technique before the enemy arrived. Wasn't this guy a weapon cultivator? How in the world did he master such a complex and exquisite technique? Wuxia stared at the intricate patterns that outlined the spell. He knew that even if he spent his entire life, he would never be able to touch the surface of this spell. Moreover, even orthodox Dharma cultivators were only at the 8th level of Cloud River. Even a Kai Realm cultivator would not be able to use such a technique. Even a true Lake Realm cultivator would not necessarily have such a huge heart, spirit, and exquisite control of spiritual power. Lu Yi, what a monster! At this moment, even though he was from a different camp, Wuxia's heart was stirred. This was the cultivator of the 9 regions. compared to those dogs in the Silver Snake Valley, how could they be just a little bit stronger? Roar! 10 miles away, a deafening roar came from the rolling horde of zombies. However, compared to the previous roar, the roar this time was obviously more fearful and anxious. Obviously, the zombies controlling the horde of zombies had also realized that something was wrong. If they did not kill the person who cast the spell before it was fully formed, they would definitely be the unlucky one. However, it was already too late. When the yellow cloud that covered the sky with countless zombies approached 5 miles in front of Wuxia, the fire phoenix that was originally condensed in midair suddenly extended its wings and flapped them lightly. At this moment, it seemed to have completely come alive. Screech! The clear and melodious cry of the bird resounded through the sky, and the huge fire the red figure flapped its wings and looked over. Wherever it passed, the scorching heat wave caused the void to distort. The long collar feathers behind its tail dragged out specks of red light, connecting together to form a fiery red belt of light. It was magnificent and magnificent. However, under this incomparably beautiful figure, there was a monstrous killing intent hidden. The huge yellow cloud that was rushing over suddenly stopped. Under the shocked gazes of Ingwuji and the many Silver Snake Valley cultivators, it turned around and ran. It escaped. Chu Ruoyu staggered. He basically could not believe his eyes. That was Lin Sun, one of the most powerful cultivators below corpse commanders. He was a vicious existence that made the 3 great secret realms of the human race avoid him. Someone so powerful actually fled from the divine bird without putting up a fight? However, how could he escape? The wings of the fire phoenix flapped steadily, but it was extremely fast. Its huge figure turned into a scorching streak of fire. In just a few seconds, it had caught up to the fleeing horde of zombies. The fiery red figure crashed into the yellow cloud. The collision of yellow and red basically did not cause any ripples at all. It had only been a single clash, and the outcome had been decided. The yellow cloud was burned to nothingness, including the zombies hidden within. They were all reduced to ashes. After the fiery red light receded slightly, it expanded loudly and enveloped a large area of space. It seemed like a rain of zombies had fallen between the heavens and the earth. Only after the blinding red light had dispersed did the scene in the air appear before their eyes. The fire phoenix was gone, and the yellow cloud that swept through the heavens and the earth was gone. There were only 2 figures standing in the air. A blade-wielding youth had already drawn his blade from its scabbard. A charred corpse that was so charred that its original appearance could not be made out was placed across the corpse's neck. The blade had already sunk 3 inches into the flesh. The charred corpse raised its huge hand and gripped the blade of Mount Wu's blade, making a final struggle. The world seemed to fall silent in that moment. The blade flashed past, and the corpse was decapitated. Chapter 807. Lu Yi sheathed his saber. He raised his eyes and looked somewhere in the sky. Quickly put away the divine mirror. Chu Ruoyu was flustered and hurriedly ordered. The last slash didn't seem to be aimed at Lin Sun, but at his neck. Even if they were separated by heaven and earth, he still had the illusion of a cold-necked dolphin. Beside Chu Ruoyu, the practitioners of the 5 families were all silent. Originally, they wanted to kill with a borrowed knife. Who would have thought that they would see such a terrible scene? A powerful undead like Lin Sun, together with the undead under his command, was burned to a crisp by the Tao of man. Even Lin Sun himself was killed. Such strength, such ferocity, everyone was glad that the young man with the saber didn't use such a technique in Wuyuan City. Otherwise, the whole city would be in purgatory. Now it seemed that losing their spirit was also good. If they hadn't lost their spirit for a long time, they might have had a fight with the 2 intruders. Although they had offended the 2, as long as they couldn't find the door to the secret realm, they couldn't come in again. Almost everyone couldn't help but have the same thought. They didn't want to meet the young man with the saber again in this life. In midair, Lu Yi withdrew his gaze and quietly stuffed a large number of spirit pills into his mouth. Taking advantage of the moment he turned around, he swept his gaze in a certain direction and rushed towards Ingwuji. In that direction, 2 figures were hiding. Hong Xian's shock couldn't be calmed down for a long time. The reason why the two of them were here was not by chance, but because they had been squatting here and monitoring Lin Sun for some days. They didn't expect to see such a shocking scene because of a competition. "It's all right," one of them said softly. "Yes." The other quickly raised his hand to his mouth. "Be quiet." He felt that the young man with the saber glanced at them when he turned around. How could he dare to be careless in the face of such a fierce person? Seeing Lu Ye's figure going away, he quickly got up. Follow him. In any case, they had to figure out the origin of that person. If they could help him, it would be best. He had killed a powerful zombie like Lin Sun and his subordinates by himself. How could such a talent be buried? Such strength and such a terrifying technique were simply unheard of. They just didn't know which one of the other two secret realms he came from. After meeting up with Wuxia, Lu Yi led him all the way up. At the same time, he silently activated the Taoist meal to quickly refine the effect of the spiritual pills in his stomach and enhance his strength. Not long ago, he had to do a long preparation to activate the Fire Phoenix spiritual tattoo, and even had to use the spiritual energy in his spiritual storage. But now, with his own spiritual energy reserves, he was barely able to draw this spiritual Taoist spirit tattoo. The time. Without a doubt, this was the benefit brought about by the rapid increase in cultivation. However, the Fire Phoenix spirit was strong. However, if it was used in a life and death battle with a strong opponent, it was still not very suitable. Although Gao Shi's time was greatly reduced, in front of a strong opponent who was on par with him, it was impossible for him to have the opportunity to accumulate power. That was why the situation was like before. The reckless enemies were attacking him from afar, giving him enough time to prepare. But then again, he had several trump cards up his sleeves. They all needed to be stored up. This blood and his transformation's secret technique. It was not easy to obtain a powerful armor like the Dragon Emperor from the Soaring Dragon realm, but it was still damaged and could not be used. He wondered how his honored master was doing now. His current cultivation was at the 8th Order Cloud River realm, and he was not far from the open Cloud River battlefield. Once he left the open Cloud River battlefield, the environment would not be so safe. He might face a life or death crisis at any time. I need to have some life-saving means. Thinking so in his heart, Wuxia's words rang in his ears. Lu Yi, Wuxia, will remember your life-saving grace. I will repay you in the future. This was the second time Sui Yi had saved his life. The first time was when he was chased by a group of zombies in the Peerless Continent. Lu Ye's void puppet had appeared and saved him. This time, Lu Yi had rescued him from the hands of the 5 great clans in one piece. It would be a lie to say that he was not grateful, but after all, they were on opposite sides. There were many things that were not up to Wuxia. Just now, he had been immersed in the shock brought by the Fire Phoenix spirit tomb. Wenwen was unable to recover until now. Sincerely expressing his thanks, his face was filled with gratitude. It was just a matter of convenience. Lu Ye's words made Wuxia feel as if he had swallowed a fly. Even if it was true, there was no need to say it so bluntly. Do I not care about face? But thinking about it carefully, perhaps Lu Yi had saved him in passing. If he wanted to open the Silver Snake Valley sealed world, he would have to clash with the 5 great families. Taking the hostages of the 5 great families, he would exchange them for Bai Ji. Wuxia's heart sank as he realized that in front of Lu Yi, Bai Ji, the 16th Order of the Cloud River realm, was not. Just as he was thinking, Lu Ye's figure suddenly fell down and a pole array appeared in his hand, shooting it out in all directions. Setting up a spirit array at this time? Wuxia suddenly understood. It seemed that the technique just now must have consumed a lot of Lu Ye's strength, so he urgently needed to restore himself. Soon, the spirit array covering a large area was set up, causing Wuxia to gasp in amazement. Such speed in setting up a spirit array was something he could never hope to achieve. Hide yourself, Lu Yeha ordered. Wuxia did not ask why and immediately activated his concealment technique. Immediately afterwards, Lu Yi also disappeared from his field of vision. Behind Mo Zhangcha was Ing Wuji, who was hiding in the dark. Suddenly, Ing Wuji noticed something strange. It seemed that someone had penetrated the spirit array and, like him and Lu Yi, had concealed themselves and acted quietly. Ing Wuji suddenly realized that Lu Yi had not arranged a spirit array here to restore himself, but rather because he had noticed that someone was secretly following them. Was it someone from Silver Snake Valley? Or was it someone else? Just as Ing Wuji was feeling suspicious, suddenly, there was a cry of alarm and two figures appeared in his field of vision. At this moment, these two people seemed to be pressed down by a colorless mountain, their figures trembling and their spirit chi fluctuating, their expressions difficult. The two looked exactly the same, but one of them was wearing blue robes. The other was wearing gray robes, so they should be a pair of playboys. The aura fluctuations coming from each of them were only at the Cloud River Realm 8th Order, but their auras and spirit chi were able to blend together perfectly. The two 8th Order masters were like a pair, exuding an imposing aura. It was even stronger than an ordinary 9th Order. What kind of technique is this? Ing Wuji stared at Yu Pei in shock. Xian Fa. The expression of the man in blue robes changed. Realizing that this was not a dream, he hurriedly shouted, "Two fellow Taoists. My brother Ro has no intention of harming you, please show mercy." He was shocked. Bai Ji and his brother had unknowingly fallen into the enemy's spirit array, and now their lives were in the hands of others. What surprised him even more was, how long had it been? The two of them had set up a spirit array here. Wasn't this too fast? The other man in gray robes also shouted, "You came to Bai Ji Dao Palace's secluded world, not some evil people." Bai Ji Dao Palace. A voice suddenly appeared. Lu Ye's figure appeared. This was really a coincidence. When Yi Jixi was in Silver Snake Valley, he had asked Chu Ruoxi about the other Shang clan's secluded world, but Chu Ruoxi had no idea. He was having a headache about how to find those two secluded worlds, but who knew that just as he stepped out of Silver Snake Valley, he would run into people from Wei Tong Palace. With a wave of his hand, the pressure that enveloped the twins suddenly disappeared. The two of them exhaled a breath of white air, and their hearts still had lingering fear. Thinking about how they had been fighting in the dark, they realized that they had actually fallen into the enemy's formation. It turned out that the feeling from before was not an illusion. The enemy had long discovered them and set up a formation here, just waiting for them to walk right into the trap. "You guys really came to Mu Zi Bo Dao Palace?" Shi looked at the two people in front of him. "There's nothing to pretend about." The man in green robes clenched his fist. "Shui Wei Dao Palace's Feng Yun Gong greets fellow Taoist." The man in gray robes also hugged GC. "Feng Yun Wanli greets fellow Taoist." The names of these two brothers. Yi Chenye's eyes flashed. "Why are you following me?" Feng Yun Qianli smiled awkwardly. "It's not intentional, it's just that us two brothers were ordered to guard Lin Sun's secluded lion clan. Seeing that fellow Taoist is like a deity descending from the heavens, and taking care of Lin Sun and his subordinates, we wanted to make friends with you. If we've caused any misunderstanding, we'll apologize to you immediately." With that said, the two brothers fell to the ground. Although these words were not entirely true, it was true that they were secretly following Lu Yi and Ing Wuji, but it was also true that they wanted to make friends with Lu Yi. "The two of you were ordered to guard Yun Wei Dao Palace's natal food?" Lu Yi was deep in thought. Shui had gathered a lot of information in 5-element city. Among them, there was naturally the way the 3 great secret realms did things. The 3 great secret realms of the human race. The Silver Snake Valley was the most cowardly, and never dared to take the initiative to have any conflicts with the corpse race. When they met the corpse race, they would avoid them as much as possible. They had long lost the courage and vigor to fight against the corpse race. But in contrast, the Purple Myrtle Dao Palace's style was tough. The corpse race of the 2 continents' corpse race was pure and clean. For 1,000 years, Shui Wei Dao Palace had always wanted to get rid of the corpse race. For so many years, they had also been working hard to take the initiative to attack the South Atmosphere Factory race. They were also trying to persuade the other 2 great secret realms to join forces. They could only understand that the results were minimal. There was no need to talk about the Silver Snake Valley. They only wanted to guard their old territory. They even had to calculate the location of the door to open the P clan's territory. How could they join forces with the Purple Myrtle Dao Palace to take the initiative to attack? As for the third Shumi Mountain secret realm, Jianghu had always been evasive. When they agreed to join forces with the Purple Myrtle Dao Palace, they did not refuse to drag it out. Their attitude was very national. However, the Jianghu mountain had also spread the word that if the Silver Snake's name was Lang Yi, they would also join forces. Therefore, the current situation of the Wuxia continent was somewhat cowardly. Only the cultivation kings of the Purple Myrtle Dao Palace secret realm took the initiative to hunt the corpse race. Shumi Mountain was keeping an eye on the Snake Valley, and the Silver Snake's father adhered to the principle of being alone to the end. Chapter 808. Among the three secret realms of the Wuxia continent, Lu Yi had seen the Silver Snake Valley and knew he couldn't count on them. However, he had left a backup plan. When the critical moment came, it was impossible for the Silver Snake Valley to stay out of it. As for the other two, Lu Yi was more inclined to cooperate with the Ziwei Taoist Palace. The practitioners in this secret realm were tough and had the demeanor of the 9 regions. If he could cooperate with them, the situation in the Wuxia continent could be changed. It could be said that the appearance of the brother Wind and Cloud was like someone giving him a pillow when he was sleepy. With many thoughts in his mind, Lu Yi asked, "What's the purpose of monitoring Lin Sun's tomb?" Wind and Cloud looked serious, of course to eradicate this evil. After hearing his explanation, Lu Yi finally understood that the Ziwei Taoist Palace had many people like the Feng and Yun brothers who were scattered outside. These people were either in charge of searching for powerful corpse race members or monitoring their movements. When the time was right, the Ziwei Taoist Palace would strike like a thunderbolt and exterminate all the corpse race members they had their eyes on. After so many years, the number of corpse clan who died in the hands of the Ziwei Taoist Palace was more than 100 or 1,000 times more than the other 2 secret realms. When they traveled outside, they would occasionally help some human strongholds. Many human strongholds had received their kindness. If the cultivators of the Pure Land organization were to touch them, they would not have a good ending. "May I ask which secret realm you two are from?" The brother Wind and Cloud were very curious. They could be sure that these 2 people were not from the Ziwei Taoist Palace. They had only been out of the secret realm for 2 months. It was impossible for the Ziwei Taoist Palace to suddenly have 2 powerful figures. But could the Silver Snake Valley and Mount Meru cultivate such talents? "We are not from the secret realm." The brother Wind and Cloud were stunned. "If you are not from the secret realm, are you from some stronghold?" Wind and Cloud looked incredible. If the 2 people in front of them were from the secret realm, they could accept it. Even if they were from the Silver Snake Valley, they were still cultivated by the secret realm. But coming from a stronghold was a bit unbelievable. The human strongholds in the Wuxia continent couldn't even guarantee their survival. How could such strong people be born? Kind of. Lu Yi repeated what he had said to Yuan Xiang, Drunk Mountain, and the others. The Wind and Cloud brothers exclaimed in disbelief. He was even more respectful towards him and Yingwuji's non-existent master. After all, the 2 of them were already so powerful. How powerful would the master who nurtured them be? So in this world, there really was an unparalleled expert. But earlier I saw a door. 1,000 Miles of Wind Cloud was a little confused. The opening of the gate of Silver Snake Valley was easy to be observed. Otherwise, it would not alarm Lin Sun, who was dozens of miles away. It was because of this that the Wind Cloud brothers were almost certain that Lu Yi and Yingwuji came from a mystic realm. "I made a trip to the Silver Snake Valley," Lu Yi explained. 1,000 Miles understood, "So that's how it is." Suddenly, he seemed to realize something and was filled with righteous indignation. Those cowards deliberately opened the door near Lin Sun's tomb. They are obviously up to no good and want to trap you too. Only then did Yingwuji wake up from his dream. He thought that the previous encounter was just bad luck, but now it seemed that he had been tricked by the Silver Snake Valley. No wonder Lu Yi left in a hurry without waiting for the door to stabilize. He had already realized this. So he was the only one who was kept in the dark. It seems that the two of you didn't get along well with the Silver Snake Valley. There was a small misunderstanding. 1,000 Miles of Wind Cloud felt Lu Ye's attitude and tried to figure out his thoughts. He made a decision and cupped his fists. Fellow Taoists, if you don't mind, why don't you come to my Ziwei Taoist palace? The way humans treat their guests is not all like the Silver Snake Valley. If the two of you can come to my Ziwei Taoist palace, I believe the palace master will be very happy. The two people in front of them were very powerful. After the death of their master, they should have intended to seek refuge in the mystic realm. In the end, they had some unhappiness with the Silver Snake Valley and were abandoned by them. They even intended to use Lin Sun to trap them. But the Silver Snake Valley obviously didn't expect the two to be so powerful. They failed to trap Lin Sun and even killed him. The Ziwei Taoist palace was undoubtedly very welcoming to such strong people. If they could rope in the two of them, it would be a happy event for the Ziwei Taoist palace. Junior brother, what do you think? Lu Yi didn't agree directly, but looked at Ing Wuji. What can I think? Ing Wuji cursed in his heart. If you want to agree, just agree directly. What's the point of pretending? But on the surface, he was very respectful. It's all up to senior brother. Lu Yi pondered for a while. Brother Wind and Cloud watched nervously. After a while, Lu Yi made a decision. If so, let's go? The Feng and Yun brothers laughed in unison. Feng Yun Qianli said, Fellow Taoist, don't worry. The Ziwei Taoist palace will not let you down. Although Feng Yun Qianli was rough, he was very careful. You two have just experienced a great battle. Why don't you rest and recover first? We will set off tomorrow so that you two know that the Ziwei Taoist palace originally planned to raid Lin Sun's tomb tomorrow. In the mystic realm, many brothers have already prepared. They only need to wait for the mystic realm to wander nearby to open the portal. Now that Lin Sun has been dealt with, it saves us a lot of trouble. Yes. So let's rest today. Tomorrow we will lead you to the portal. Since they said so, Lu Yi naturally agreed. He had consumed too much spiritual energy. Although he had taken some spiritual pills, he still needed some time to recover. Otherwise, he wouldn't have set up a formation here and waited for the Feng and Yun brothers to enter the trap. Ing Wuji's condition was much worse than his. His injuries had not healed and he really needed to rest. The formation was not removed. Ing Wuji walked to the side and licked his wounds silently. While recovering, Lu Yi casually chatted with the Feng and Yun brothers, inquiring about some information that he didn't know. The Feng and Yun brothers wanted to win him over, so they wouldn't hide anything. Besides, what Lu Yi asked was nothing more than some common sense and didn't involve the secrets of the Ziwei Taoist palace. However, after this conversation, the Feng and Yun brothers were more and more sure that Lu Yi and Ing Wuji were the kind of inexperienced people. Naturally, they were happy. It was really good luck to pick up such two strong people when they went out to carry out a task. The night was peaceful. The next day, Lu Yi had fully recovered. Although Ing Wuji's injuries had not healed, he was much better than yesterday. When it was almost time, the Feng and Yun brothers led the way, followed by Lu Yi and Ing Wuji. After walking for a short distance, which was near the battlefield yesterday, the Feng and Yun brothers stopped. The Ziwei Taoist palace had already planned to raid Lin Sun's tomb. They only needed to wait for the mystic realm to wander nearby to carry out the plan. The portal was naturally not far from Lin Sun's tomb. At the same time, the mystic realm of the Ziwei Taoist palace was connected to the outside world. Many practitioners were waiting for the battle. The leader of the group was a woman dressed as a man. She looked valiant and formidable. Normally, women dressed as men just wanted to hide their feminine characteristics. However, no matter how hard they tried to hide, their natural softness and beauty could not be erased. Although this woman dressed as a man, she didn't mean to hide her identity as a woman. Her beauty was not lacking in firmness. The softness of a woman and the strength of a man were perfectly integrated in her body. Especially her eyes, which were as bright as stars and as sharp as an eagle. He was young and looked like he was in his early 20s. However, the qi on his body was extremely dense. He was not any weaker than the experts on the Yunhe list. This woman was Pang Huaning, the current palace lord of the Ziwei Daoist Palace. For thousands of years, there were few women in the Ziwei Daoist Palace who could sit in the position of palace lord, let alone at such a young age. There was only one reason why Pang Huaning could occupy such a high position with such a young body. That was, she was strong enough. She had inherited the Ziwei Daoist Palace's style of doing things since ancient times. Although she was a woman, her style was tougher than many men. When dealing with the corpse clan, she adhered to the idea of exterminating all of them. It was not the first time that the Ziwei Daoist Palace had targeted the powerful corpse clan. Although Lin Sun was strong, it was not to the extent that she, the palace lord, had to deal with him personally. The reason why she came here this time was mainly to observe the strength of the two guests. Just a few days ago, the practitioners of the Ziwei Daoist Palace who were patrolling outside found two powerful practitioners. Seeing them kill the corpse clan like cutting melons and vegetables, they couldn't help but admire them. They went up to them and talked to them. Then, they led the two into the Ziwei Daoist Palace. Pang Huaning didn't care about the background of these two people or whether they came from other mystic realms. As long as they could kill the corpse clan, the Ziwei Daoist Palace would accept them as one of their own. After a few days of contact, Pang Huaning also found that the strength of these two people was indeed not to be underestimated. But what made her feel strange was that these two people claimed that they didn't come from other mystic realms, but they didn't seem to be from some stronghold. This was because Pang Huaning could clearly sense that although the two of them were polite when dealing with people, there was an indescribable pride in their bones. Just like herself. Such people generally came from extraordinary backgrounds. But in the current situation of the Wuxia continent, if they didn't come from those two mystic realms, how noble could their backgrounds be? Although there were many doubts about these two people, Pang Huaning also adhered to the principle of not using people she didn't trust. This time, she came here mainly to see how they would perform, because the people who led them to the Ziwei Daoist Palace highly praised their strength. "Palace Lord, we're here." An old man stepped forward and bowed. "Do we need to activate the sky reflecting mirror first?" "No, Lin Sun's strength is extraordinary. If we activate the sky reflecting mirror, he may sense it and open the door directly." "Yes," the old man answered, bowed, and left to preside over the opening of the door. Many practitioners of the Ziwei Daoist Palace who were waiting here immediately activated their spiritual powers secretly. In front of these practitioners, an unruly man holding a spear licked his lips and was full of fighting spirit. Beside him, another man in green clothes with a condensed breath also had a faint smile on his face. He didn't seem to care about the upcoming battle at all and even looked forward to it. Chapter 809. They were Lu Qing of the Myriad Laws Pavilion and Feng Ruli of the Lingyun sect. Their luck was undoubtedly much worse than Lu Yi and Ing Wuji's. Not long after coming to the Wuxia continent, they met. Both of them belonged to the Myriad Demon's Ridge. Even though Song Shanghan had a one-night stand, they had a natural closeness to each other. Later, they worked together to investigate the situation of this world. During this period, they encountered some corpses and fought many battles. The nearby patrolling cultivators of the Ziwei Daoist Palace noticed them and came to talk to them. Then, they were led into the Ziwei Daoist Palace. In these few days, the two of them slowly understood the general situation of this world. They also had some guesses as to why Tianji of the 9 continents would send them, who were ranked highly on the Cloud River battle ranking list, to such a place. Hearing that the Ziwei Daoist Palace was going to raid Lin Sun's tomb, they couldn't hold back and took the initiative to ask for help. Coming from the top sects of the 9 states, the pride in their bones couldn't be concealed even if they didn't deliberately show it. Brother Feng, the palace lord of the Ziwei Daoist Palace, probably wants to see our strength with her own eyes. "Don't hide your strength," Lu Qing said softly beside Feng Ruli. Feng Ruli grinned. "Don't worry. I won't let her harm us 9 states cultivators. But we still can't be careless. I heard that Lin Sun is a type of corpse and has killed a lot of corpses. Later, you and I will work together. I will find a way to make Lin Sun reveal his weakness, and you can kill him." Feng Ruli nodded and gently stroked the long spear in his hand. Spiritual light flashed on the spear, and his eyes were cold. I will never underestimate any enemy. At this moment, a voice shouted, "The door is open." Feng Ruli moved and rushed toward the door with unparalleled momentum. Lu Qing, who was half a body's length behind him, followed closely behind. Many cultivators from the Ziwei Dao Palace saw this and praised them in their hearts. Regardless of whether these two were as powerful as they were rumored to be, just their courage to face the Corpse clan without fear was a sign that they were of the same origin as the Ziwei Dao Palace. After the two, the well-prepared cultivators of the Ziwei Daoist Palace stepped through the door and rushed out of the secret realm. Palace Lord. An old man beside Pang Huanin bowed slightly. Let's go. Let's see if our two guests are really brave. As he spoke, he clasped his hands behind his back and took a few steps to the door. Then his heroic figure passed through the door. His vision changed, but the expected battle did not break out. The many cultivators who had rushed out of the secret realm were scattered in the air, and their spiritual weapons were at a loss in their hands. Pang Huanin frowned slightly. She suddenly had a bad feeling. Did Lin Sun sense the danger and run away in advance? Otherwise, why was there no movement at all? What surprised her even more was the reaction of the two guests. At this moment, the two of them were both looking in a certain direction. The arrogance they had displayed even in front of her, the master of the secret realm, had completely vanished. Pang Huanin even sensed a hint of restraint from the two of them. What did he see? Pang Huanin followed their gazes and saw a pair of twins flying over. When they got close, they cupped their fists respectfully and said, "1,000 miles of wind and cloud, 1,000 miles of wind and cloud, greet the palace lord." Pang Huanin nodded. She recognized that the two of them were her people who were in charge of checking Lin Sun's tomb. She asked, "Where did Lin Sun go?" 1,000 miles of wind and cloud replied, "Lin Sun is dead." Pang Huanin raised her eyebrows and asked in surprise, "Who did it?" In the current Wushuang continent, Lin Sun's strength was only below that of the Corpse commanders. In the current Wushuang continent, apart from the Ziwei Daoist Palace, there were only two other secret realms that had the strength to take him down. However, would those two really dare to take the initiative to attack Lin Sun? Or did something happen that forced them to confront Lin Sun? "It's Lu Ye over there. Fellow Daoist Lu did it." 1,000 miles of wind and cloud turned around and pointed in the direction of Lu Ye. Only then did Long Huanin notice the remnants of the battlefield from yesterday. She looked around and saw that a large area was filled with scattered pieces of charred corpses. Not far away, there was a head with eyes wide open and rotting flesh. Who else could it be but Lin Sun? Judging from the expression on his face before he died, he seemed to have seen an extremely shocking scene. The Corpse clan was an undead. They were not afraid of anything. What could possibly frighten them? Behind Pang Huanin, the old man asked, "Are you saying that just the two of them killed Lin Sun?" How unbelievable was this? Even if the Ziwei Daoist Palace wanted to deal with Lin Sun, they would have to send all their elites. After all, Lin Sun was a zombie. He had a huge group of zombies under his command. 1,000 miles of wind and cloud shook his head and said, "Elder Shao, the one who killed Lin Sun is only fellow Daoist Lu Ye." Even though the old man had seen many storms, he couldn't help but gasp at this moment. He looked straight at 1,000 miles of wind and cloud with an expression that said, "Don't joke with me." Killing Lin Sun alone? He didn't even dare to think about it. Moreover, judging from the remnants of the battlefield, that person not only killed Lin Sun but also wiped out the huge group of zombies under his command. It seemed that the person used an earth-shattering fire element spell. Who are these two people? Elder Shao asked in surprise. 1,000 miles of wind and cloud told him what he knew about Lu Yi and Ing Wuji. Hearing this, Pang Huanin's expression changed. Subconsciously, she looked at Lu Qing and Feng Ruli. A strong sense of déjà vu welled up in her heart. They didn't come from secret realms, but their strength was incomparably strong. How similar were these two to the previous two? Palace Master, could it be that these four people? Elder Shao had some doubts in his heart. Pang Huanin raised her hand slightly and said, "Just watch." Her phoenix-like eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a sense of scrutiny. However, her mind was more focused on Lu Yi. Because of Lu Qing and Feng Ruli's sudden restraint, she realized something. Looking at Lu Qing and Feng Ruli who came out of the Ziwei Daoist palace, Lu Yi was both surprised and not surprised. 9 people were sent here by Tianji of the 9 states. So far, he had only seen Ying Wuji. He didn't know the whereabouts of the others. But among the 9 people, except for Hua Ci, the others were all powerful. They were bound to stir up a storm in the small broken world. Ziwei Daoist Palace was very enthusiastic about the experts who dared to fight against the zombie clan. Many of their men were scattered outside. Therefore, as long as the cultivators from the 9 states were discovered by the Ziwei Daoist Palace, the 2 sides would definitely cross paths. That was how he and Ying Wuji became acquainted with the brother Wind and Cloud. Therefore, before this, he guessed that there might be someone who entered the Daoist palace before them. What made him slightly disappointed was that it was not Giant Armor or Hua Ci, but Lu Qing and Feng Ruli. Their gazes met in midair. Lu Qing and Feng Ruli were a little embarrassed. They came out aggressively, wanting to show off in front of the Ziwei Daoist palace. But they found that their original target had been taken care of, and Lu Yi had appeared in front of them. Even facing Pang Huanin, the palace master, they didn't care much. But no one dared to ignore Lu Yi. The atmosphere became strange. It was Ying Wuji who broke the silence. He stood beside Lu Yi and laughed. He shouted at Lu Qing, "4th senior brother, so you're here." "What 4th senior brother?" Lu Qing's expression fell. Ying Wuji looked at Feng Ruli. "6th senior brother is here too." "How nice." Feng Ruli was speechless. But he didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. The 2 of them were smart enough to understand that Ying Wuji's ranking was based on the Cloud River Contest's ranking list. Lu Qing was 4th on the list, so he was the 4th senior brother. Feng Ruli was 6th, so he was the 6th senior brother. But according to this ranking, wouldn't Lu Ye be? While thinking about this, Lu Ye took a step forward and looked at the 2 of them indifferently without saying a word. Lu Qing and Feng Ruli suddenly felt as uncomfortable as if they had eaten dead meat. On the other side, Pang Huanin looked at Lu Qing and Feng Ruli for a while, then at Lu Yi and Ying Wuji. She felt that the atmosphere between these brothers was not so harmonious. However, Lu Qing and Feng Ruli, who were proud and arrogant, were so cautious. Moreover, he had killed Lin Sun by himself. How strong was this guy named Lu Yi? "Are you dumb?" Lu Yi said softly. Behind him, Endless Shadow's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. He had only wanted to smooth things over and ease the atmosphere, so he had casually made the order. But now, even he realized that something was wrong. Lu Yi seemed to be a little bit excited. Wasn't he pushing himself into the fire pit? In the subtle atmosphere, Lu Qing seemed to understand something. With relief on his face, he cupped his fists respectfully and said, "Greetings, senior brother." Not to mention that Lu Ye was so powerful that it was not good to have any conflict with him here. Besides, Lu Ye was probably the only one who knew the purpose of 9 regions sending them here. So in any case, they couldn't fall out with him. It was just a senior brother. They wouldn't lose anything. The corner of Feng Ruli's eyes twitched slightly. He sighed in his heart and could only salute, "Greetings, senior brother." He glared fiercely at Ying Wuji behind Lu Yi and cursed in his heart. "Lackey, traitor." Ying Wuji understood the meaning in his eyes and was full of grievances. Since ancient times, it was always a joyous occasion for brothers to recognize each other, but there had never been such a strange atmosphere like today. The Wind and Cloud brothers were stunned. Lu Yi had told them that they came from a small stronghold. After their master passed away, he and his junior brother left that place. However, he did not mention anything about a 4th junior brother or a 6th junior brother. According to this arrangement, wouldn't there be at least 6 of them? Were all of them so powerful? In the strange atmosphere, Pang Huanin stepped out and looked at Lu Yi. "Fellow Taoist Lu killed Lin Sun and eradicated a disaster for our human clan. It's really a great blessing for our human clan. Since you are the senior brother of fellow Taoist Lu and fellow Taoist Feng, you are not an outsider. Please come into the secret realm and let me play host. Lu Yi didn't refuse. Thank you for your hospitality. Chapter 8:10. It was different from the secret realm of Silver Snake Valley, where Wuyuan City was the center and 16 cities spread out in all directions. The Ziwei Taoist Palace still maintained the layout from 1,000 years ago. Spirit peaks and mountains were undulating, and pavilions were scattered all over the mountains and fields. Many cultivators came and went. Looking around, it was as if one had entered a cultivation sect. The inheritance of the Ziwei Taoist Palace had never been cut off and had continued to this day. This was the biggest difference between the Ziwei Taoist Palace and the other two secret realms. It was also the root of the Ziwei Taoist Palace's unyielding style. Since 1,000 years ago, the Ziwei Taoist Palace had always been united. On the other hand, the 5 major clans in the Silver Snake Valley controlled the secret realm and were fighting for power. How could they have the time to deal with the Corpse Clan? For them, as long as the Corpse Clan didn't enter the secret realm, it was not a big deal. There was a hall in the Spirit Peak. Pang Huanin and a group of powerhouses from the Ziwei Taoist Palace sat down in front of them. Wine and spiritual fruits, which were rarely seen in the outside world, were presented to Lu Yi as a way of thanking him for eliminating Lin Sun, as well as a welcome dinner for Lu Yi and Ingwuji. Pang Huaning didn't know how strong Lu Qing and Feng really were. After all, she didn't see it with her own eyes. She only heard some news from her subordinates. But if what brother Feng Yun said was true and Lin Sun was killed by Lu Yi alone, then this person's strength was terrifying. And as Elder Shao had expected, what killed Lin Sun and his huge group of corpses was a powerful fire spell. The shape of the spell was quite similar to the legendary fire phoenix of the 4 sacred beasts. After 3 rounds of wine, Elder Shao said, "Little friend Lu's strength is amazing. This old man admires you. I'm also friends with little friend Lu and little friend Feng." As soon as the old man spoke, the hall quieted down. If it were only Lu Qing and Feng Ruli, the Ziwei Taoist Palace wouldn't care too much. Such powerhouses should be recruited to serve the Taoist Palace and fight for justice. However, Lu Yi and Ing Wuji had suddenly appeared, and from the various clues, there were quite a few of them, at least 6 of them. This made the Ziwei Taoist Palace pay attention. It was hard to tell what was in a person's heart. Who knew what these people were thinking? It wouldn't be good for Ziwei Tao Palace if people like them were strong enough to harm them. However, if they could confirm their origins and confirm that they were willing to fight alongside the Ziwei Palace, it would definitely be a good thing for the palace. Therefore, they had to get to the bottom of this no matter what. Lu Yi, who was sitting at the table, had not touched the wine in front of him. Naturally, he understood what Elder Shao meant. He turned his head and looked straight at Pang Huanin. "We don't know the origin of our master. We have been living in a secluded place with our master since we were very young. It was only a few months ago when our master passed away that we came out." Lu Ye's so-called master was completely unwarranted. The Holy Ji Palace wanted to find out where they came from, and Lu Yi was unable to give them a satisfactory answer. Without waiting for Elder Shao to continue asking, Lu Yi continued, "There are 9 of us in total. We met with an accident and were separated. Only today did I find out that 4th and 6th are here at the Tao Palace." 9 people? Elder Shao raised his eyebrows. This number was a bit more than he had expected. After pondering for a moment, he opened his mouth and said, "Little friend, do all of your martial brothers have the same cultivation level as you? Except for little junior sister, who doesn't know the Tao of battle, the others are just barely strong." Feng Ruli lowered his head and drank. He was ranked 6th in the Cloud River contest, and only Lu Ye could comment on him like this. If anyone else dared to say that his strength was just barely strong, he would definitely not agree. Master left suddenly. Before he left, he didn't say much to us. He only said one thing. "Which one?" Pang Huanin asked. "Eradicate the Corpse Clan and cleanse the world." Lu Yi replied in a deep voice. Lu Qing was deep in thought. He thought that Lu Ye must have received some guidance from Tianji before entering the Wushuang continent. This was also their purpose for coming here. It was not much different from his previous speculation. Elder Shao nodded. Your master cared about the world and was able to cultivate talents like these young friends. He shouldn't be an unknown person. After we left the mountain, we acted according to Master's last words. After discovering that there were 3 secret realms in the human clan, 7th junior brother and I wanted to seek refuge in one place and seek cooperation. However, we didn't expect that the Silver Snake Valley was timid and despicable. Not only did they not want to fight against the Corpse Clan, but they were also afraid of our cultivation. Therefore, 7th junior brother and I had no choice but to leave the Silver Snake Valley. Elder Shao stretched out his hand and stroked his beard. However, those despicable villains secretly sent you too near Lin Sun's tomb and wanted to use Lin Sun to kill you too. Both Pang Huanin and Elder Shao knew this because Brother Feng and Elder Shao had reported it truthfully. Yes. Lu Yi nodded and stared intently at Pang Huanin. Although I've heard a lot of rumors about the Ziwei Taoist Palace, seeing is believing. Today, I'd like to ask Palace Master Pang, if my brother and I intend to eradicate the corpse race, can the Ziwei Taoist Palace help us? He was well aware that the Ziwei Taoist Palace wanted to find out the background of Lu Yi and the others at this banquet, but this was not the 9 regions after all. For outsiders like them, there was not much time to waste, so Lu Yi was too lazy to beat around the bush with the Ziwei Taoist Palace. It was better to get straight to the point. Of course, he had a lot to hide, but those things were not easy to say. The Ziwei Taoist Palace should be aware of it. However, as long as they were like-minded, it was not a big problem. As long as these outsiders showed their determination to fight against the Corpse Clan to the end and put it into action, the Ziwei Taoist Palace would let down their guard against them. Pang Huanin narrowed her eyes slightly. Since the change of the world, the Ziwei Taoist Palace has been taking the great responsibility of eradicating the Corpse Clan. Her voice was sonorous and her expression was firm. Lu Yi nodded. That's good. But Pang Huanin laughed and leaned forward slightly. But there is one thing that Taoism fellow Lu is wrong about. I'd like to hear it. For thousands of years, the Ziwei Taoist Palace has followed the will of our ancestors and has never changed. Countless people have died in this war. The Ziwei Taoist Palace is determined to wipe out the Corpse Clan, whether or not Taoism fellow Lu and others help us. If we can't do it in 1,000 years, we will do it again. If we can't do it in another 1,000 years, we will do it in 10,000 years. There will be a time when we can wipe out the Corpse Clan. Even if we have to fight to the last soldier of the Ziwei Taoist Palace, we will not compromise. Therefore, fellow Taoist Lu, I sincerely invite all of you to join the Ziwei Taoist Palace and contribute to the future of the human race. Lu Yi realized that this woman had a strong character. He just said that he wanted the Ziwei Taoist Palace to help them, but in the blink of an eye, Pang Huanin wanted to rope them in. It was just a question of who was the master and who was the subordinate. From the standpoint of the Ziwei Taoist Palace and Pang Huanin, it was natural for her to fight for these things. Lu Yi didn't want to argue with her about this and said, if Palace Master can agree to 3 conditions, let's hear it. Pang Huanin's interest was piqued. Lu Yi said, Palace Master, I've told you that there are a total of 9 of us. Now, only 4 of us are gathered here, and the whereabouts of the other 5 are unknown. Therefore, I would like to ask for your help to find the whereabouts of the other 5 junior brothers and junior sisters. Of course. Pang Huanin nodded. I just don't know what characteristics those 5 people have. Their strength is not bad. The group of Ziwei Taoist Palace cultivators were stunned. What kind of characteristics were these? No one present felt that they were weak. Pang Huanin was also amused. I wonder how strong Taoism fellow Taoist Lu is referring to? Lu Yi raised his head and looked at Feng Ruli. 6th junior brother, demonstrate. Feng Ruli almost cursed out loud. He was a core disciple of the Soaring Cloud sect. He was not some commoner. You want me to demonstrate in front of so many people? Do you think I'll do it just because you asked me to? However, when he met Lu Ye's gaze, Feng Ruli knew that he couldn't refuse. Otherwise, this guy would definitely find a way to make things difficult for him. We came to the Ziwei Taoist Palace first. He picked up the wine cup in front of him, took a sip and stepped out. Standing in the main hall, he brandished his long spear, and his spiritual energy surged. He wantonly said, "Any one of you who thinks you're not bad." The group of Ziwei Taoist Palace cultivators' faces darkened, and their fighting spirit surged. However, without Pang Huanin's order, no one dared to step out. In the end, Elder Shao signaled one of them with his eyes. "Qi Ping, you go." "Yes." The cultivator called Qi Ping jumped out and landed in front of Feng Ruli. With an eager expression, he grinned and said, "I heard that Taoism fellow Taoist Feng is very powerful. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, but Lin Sun was killed, so I missed the opportunity. I didn't expect to have such an opportunity again. Taoism fellow Taoist Feng, please enlighten me." Feng Ruli looked indifferent. "Just do your best." "Okay." Qi Ping's smile disappeared. "Taoism fellow Taoist Feng, you're underestimating me, cut the crap." "Good." Qi Ping angrily shouted. His spirit energy suddenly surged as he summoned his spirit artifact. It was a long staff. With the staff in hand, Qi Ping's aura suddenly changed. As the staff danced, he brazenly charged toward Feng Ruli. Without any fancy moves, he smashed down with the staff. Spiritual vigor wrapped around the long staff, and layers of phantoms appeared on its body. Even if Qi Ping did not use his full strength, he used at least 80% of it. The main reason was that the venue was limited. However, he believed that even if he did not use his full strength, he should be able to test Feng Ruli's strength. In the seat of honor, Elder Shao nodded slightly, apparently satisfied with Qi Ping's performance. However, in the next moment, exclamations sounded in the venue. This was because Feng Ruli held his spear with one arm and thrust it out, accurately hitting Qi Ping's body amidst the layers of phantoms. In a moment of stalemate, their spiritual energies collided and surged. Feng Ruli's body swayed slightly, while Qi Ping, who had charged at Feng Ruli aggressively, was sent flying and landed outside the hall. The wine cup in Pang Huanin's hand was almost crushed. She clicked to download the Best Book Chaser app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 8:11. The whole hall was silent. Qi Ping's strength was not among the top in Ziwei Palace, but he was worthy of being called a strong man. However, such a strong man was repelled by Feng Ruli's spear. Judging from Feng Ruli's expression, it was clear that he had not used his full strength. Elder Shao, who was sitting next to Pang Huanin, pulled off his beard. They didn't know how strong Feng Ruli was. Only the Ziwei Palace cultivators who led them into the secret realm had seen it with their own eyes. Today, they wanted to borrow Lin Sun's strength to take a closer look, but Lin Sun was killed first. Until this moment, one more. Feng Ruli stabbed his long spear into the ground and shouted in high spirits with the help of some alcohol. Without waiting for Elder Zhao's order, a bearded man stood up and shouted, "I'll do it." Feng Ruli laughed and waved his spear, aiming at the bearded man's head. 5 breaths later, the burly man fell out of the hall. One more time. Feng Ruli was so excited that he directly put his spear on his shoulder like a stick and glanced at the Ziwei Palace cultivators. A moment later, the third person was thrown out of the hall. From beginning to end, Feng Ruli had only used 3 spear moves. "Sixth brother, it's about time," Lu Yi said. Feng Ruli shook his head. "I haven't had enough yet." His personality was like this. He liked to fight. The 3 confrontations were just a warm-up for him. "I'll fight with you," Lu Yi looked up. Feng Ruli felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over him in the middle of winter. Sobering up, Zhang Yang quickly withdrew his aura and put away his spear. Without even looking at Lu Yi, he walked back to his seat, whispering softly, drinking wine is still the best." Pang Huanin's eyes narrowed slightly. The cultivators of the Ziwei Taoist Palace seemed to have realized something as well, and they all looked at Lu Yi with solemn eyes. In the silence, Elder Shao coughed softly. "Little friend Feng's strength is really amazing." She was more than just exceptional. Pang Huanin was probably the only one in the entire Ziwei Palace who could match her strength. No one else could possibly be her opponent. "Elder, you flatter me," Feng Ruli laughed and continued to drink. "I wonder, with little friend Feng's strength, Where does he rank among all the senior and junior brothers? As soon as Elder Shao said this, everyone's ears pricked up. Feng Ruli said carelessly, us martial brothers are ranked based on strength. I, old 6, am naturally ranked 6th. Pang Huanin's eyes narrowed into slits as she gasped in astonishment. Feng Ruli's strength was comparable to hers. Then wouldn't the first 5 be stronger than him? What about Lu Ye, the eldest senior brother? She exhaled softly, calming her complicated emotions, and turned to look at Lu Yi. Fellow Taoist, please continue with your other conditions. The second condition is that I want to go to the Sumeru mystic realm. I need your help with this. Pang Huanin was puzzled. Why do you want to go to Mount Sumeru? Lu Yi said, it has to do with my lost junior brothers and sisters. 7th brother and I went to Silver Snake Valley. 4th brother and 6th brother went to Ziwei Palace. Maybe my other junior brothers and sisters went to Mount Sumeru. If I want to find them, I have to go to Mount Sumeru. That's not easy. Sir Shao shook his head. Ever since the heavenly transformation, the 3 great arcane realms of the human race have rarely interacted with each other. Generally speaking, it's only when the welcoming emissaries run into each other, or when they meet in a specific location at a specific time. If you want to go directly to one of the arcane realms. Very difficult. Pang Huanin asked, what's your third condition? Lu Yi shook his head slowly. If Ziwei Palace can meet the first 2 conditions, then it won't be too late to tell you. But please rest assured, Palace Master, I won't force you. Besides, the third condition should coincide with the philosophy of Ziwei Palace. The philosophy of Ziwei Palace. Pang Huanin said thoughtfully. After a long time, she said, the first condition is nothing. It's reasonable that you want to find your junior brothers and sisters. The Ziwei Palace can tell me. Feng Ruli said, we want to know, what's the third condition you mentioned to Ziwei Palace? And why do you want to go to Mount Sumeru? Lu Yi glanced at him and then looked at Lu Qing. If you have any questions, just ask me directly. There's no need to ask others. Lu Qing smiled faintly. Fellow Taoist Lu misunderstood. Halfway through his sentence, he couldn't continue because Lu Ye's gaze had turned sharp and playful, as if he had seen through Lu Qing's heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. He hurriedly corrected himself. But this is indeed what I'm puzzled about. I don't think it's just as fellow Taoist explained to the Ziwei Dao Palace, right? The 9 of us came here and were scattered all over the place. Since Tianji has gathered us here, we should work together. Now that the 4 of us are here, what's wrong with me asking Ziwei Taoist Palace to find the other 5? Lu Qing nodded. Of course there's nothing wrong with it. But if it's just to find people, why go to Mount Sumeru? Let Ziwei help as much as possible. As for the second condition, I'll discuss it with Elder Shao and see if there's anything we can do. Then I'll wait for Palace Lord's good news. Lu Yi nodded. The banquet quickly dispersed. Lu Yi and the others were settled in a quiet mountain peak. Ziwei Palace didn't leave anyone behind, so there were only the 4 of them in a 10-li radius. In the side room, Lu Yi, who was resting cross-legged, frowned as he looked at Lu Qing and Feng Ruli, who came in uninvited. Behind them was Ying Wuji, who was frowning. He didn't want to come, but he had to. No matter what, he was still a member of Myriad Devil Ridge. He should advance and retreat together with Lu Qing and Feng Ruli. What's the matter? Lu Yi looked at the 3. Feng Ruli didn't seem to want to weaken his momentum. He straightened his neck. Of course there's something. It's the same for Ziwei Palace. What is fellow Taoist planning? What do you know that we don't? What do you think I should know that you don't? Lu Yi asked instead of answering. He didn't reveal too many clues, but now it seemed that Lu Qing had seen something. Sure enough, the mind of a magic cultivator was more clever than that of a body cultivator and a weapon cultivator. Lu Qing smiled bitterly. If I knew, would I still need to ask you? Fellow Taoist just said that 9 provinces Tianji gathered the 9 of us together, so we should work together. At least on this Wushuang continent, there shouldn't be any distinction between Grand Heaven Alliance and Myriad Devil Ridge. In terms of Tianji's favor, we can't compare to you. So I was wondering if fellow Taoist had received some special guidance from Tianji before leaving 9 provinces. No. Lu Ye's expression was calm. I only know that 9 provinces Tianji sent us here probably because they want us to solve the disaster of the corpse clan in this world. Presumably, you've all thought of this. Chapter 8:12. Lu Qing naturally had a guess as to why Tianji sent the 9 of them to this world, and it was no different from what Lu Yi said. This was also the reason why he and Feng Ruli joined the Ziwei Taoist palace after learning about the situation on the Peerless Continent. Lu Qing also wanted to borrow the power of this world's secret realm. However, he always felt that Lu Yi should have more information than the others, especially after Lu Yi made his request during the day. At this moment, after probing, he didn't get any useful clues, so he could only give up. He couldn't threaten Lu Yi with force. Their fists weren't as big as his. If they really fought, the 3 of them might not have a good ending. Lu Qing stared deeply at Lu Yi and secretly reminded him, I hope it's as fellow Taoist said, but please remember that this is not the land of the 9 provinces. It's better for us not to have too many prejudices. The 3 of them left. After sitting for a while, Lu Yi stood up and walked out. The night was thick. There was no moonlight or starlight on the Peerless Continent, only a turbid sun in the daytime. Therefore, at night, even cultivators were unwilling to go out easily. However, according to the records of many ancient books, the Peerless Continent was not like this before the change of the sky. This world also had a dazzling sun, and at night, the sky was also full of stars and the moon was tilted. However, after the change of the sky, everything changed. Lu Ye's figure was like the wind. Soon, he came to a nearby spirit peak, where a figure was standing quietly. Noticing his arrival, the person turned to look at him and slightly nodded. Fellow Taoist Lu. Palace Master Pang. The person standing here was Pang Huanin. The spirit peak here was quite high, and she seemed to be overlooking the lights between the mountains below. Fellow Taoist Lu, you've been busy all the way here. Instead of resting, you still have the leisure to travel at night? She was secretly shocked. How did he know that she was here? This place was not close to the spirit peak where Lu Yi and the others were staying. There was no reason for him to detect her whereabouts. Isn't it the same for Palace Master? Lu Yi came to her side and stood still. Pang Huanin laughed and didn't answer. She couldn't say that she wanted to find Lu Yi, but when she came here, she was a little hesitant, so she stopped. Unexpectedly, Lu Yi took the initiative to come knocking on his door. For Lu Yi to know that she was here was not because he had sensed it himself. His mind was indeed powerful, but the range of his perception was not so vast. It was Yi, who had been hiding in the dark and patrolling the area, who had sent him a message. Upon hearing this, Lu Yi immediately understood Pang Huanin's intention. It seemed that she wanted to talk to him alone, but couldn't make up her mind at the last moment, so she decided to stay here. It just so happened that Lu Yi also wanted to talk to her alone. There were some things that were not easy to say in front of so many people during the day. The mountain breeze blew gently, refreshing and pleasant. After a long silence, Pang Huanin finally said, Fellow Taoist Lu, in fact, I still find it hard to imagine what kind of senior or master in today's world could cultivate such powerful experts like you and your senior brothers. Moreover, according to my observation, your masters don't seem to be of the same origin. Even with Lu Ye's explanation, Pang Huanin still can't figure out their origins. She's confident that her strength is one of the best in the Wushuang continent. Since she was young, she had encountered many opportunities and encounters. That's why she was able to ascend to the position of Palace Master at such a young age. However, among Lu Ye's senior brothers, the 6th brother's strength was almost on par with hers. It was really hard to imagine. Palace Master, are you afraid that our senior brothers will harm the Ziwei Taoist palace? Pang Huanin shook her head and said, I don't think so. You're all humans, and you're capable of killing corpses. That's enough for me. As for whether you'll harm the Ziwei Taoist palace or not, I've never thought about it. If you really have the ability to eradicate the corpses, I won't mind giving the Ziwei Taoist palace to you. Palace Master, you are so bold. If that's the case, why do you still care about our origins? Pang Huanin turned her head. In the dark night, her eyelids seemed to blink playfully. Just take it as a woman's curiosity. However, the only thing I can be sure of is that you are not from the other two secret realms. Those two secret realms don't have such a background. Lu Yi remained silent. Compared to your background, I'm actually more interested in knowing something else. Pang Huanin changed the topic. Romance bar. Palace Master, what do you want to know? The woman's eyes sharpened, and there was a hint of inquiry in them. Why do you want to go to Mount Meru? She was not a fool. Although Lu Yi had given some seemingly reasonable explanations during the conversation during the day, how could Pang Huanin believe it so easily? If she was such a simple woman, she would not be the Palace Master. She could sense that Lu Yi was not telling the truth. Of course, it's to find my lost junior brothers and sisters. Pang Huanin smiled. If that's the case, there's no need to go to Mount Meru. I'll ask someone to send a message to Mount Meru and ask around. You can't believe it unless you see it with your own eyes. Fellow Taoist, your junior brothers and sisters are quite strong. If they are really in Mount Meru, they will not be unknown. You can easily find out the truth. Why are you so persistent? I still want to go there myself. Pang Huanin stared at his side profile for a long time without turning her head. Lu Yi was indifferent, as if she did not exist. Finally, Pang Huanin looked away and sighed heavily. Fellow Taoist, you may not believe it, but when I saw you for the first time, I couldn't help but think that you are a trustworthy person. Although she had tried her best to suppress these inexplicable thoughts, and even deliberately warned herself against Lu Yi and the others, what surprised her was that she could not erase that sense of trust. This was also the reason why she came to see Lu Yi tonight. She wanted to find out if Lu Yi had secretly used some mysterious secret technique to affect her state of mind. If that was really the case, then these outsiders were too dangerous. But thinking about it carefully, such a strange secret technique was probably difficult for even the great cultivators before the heavenly change, let alone the cultivators of today. A person in a high position like her would not easily reveal her true thoughts, but after chatting with Lu Yi, she finally couldn't hold back. Hearing this, Lu Yi frowned. Palace Master, do you only trust me, or do you also trust my junior brothers? Of course, he didn't think that Pang Huanin deliberately said such words to get close to him. Since she said so, it must be true. Only you. Pang Huanin replied in a deep voice. Lu Yi finally turned his head to look at her, as if he had vaguely noticed something. Immediately, he secretly activated the broken origin of the soaring dragon realm. In the next moment, both he and Pang Huanin were shocked as they vaguely sensed something. Fellow Taoist, Pang Huanin's expression was full of surprise and doubt. Obviously, she did not understand what had happened. She quickly retreated several feet, and her eyes were alert. What did you do just now? At that moment, the inexplicable sense of trust in her grew stronger, and she even felt that she could expose all her secrets in front of him without worrying that he would hurt her. This feeling was too dangerous. Lu Yi said thoughtfully, Palace Master, you have such strength at such a young age. I don't think you are just talented, right? Are there many opportunities on the path of cultivation? Pang Huanin was even more surprised. How do you know? There were even some strange phenomena when she was born. In front of the main hall of the Ziwei Taoist Palace, there was a withered 300-year-old tree that came back to life. When she was in her teens, she accidentally found a cave left behind by an ancestor and found some broken secret techniques of the Ziwei Taoist Palace. It was also because of these reasons that no one in the Ziwei Taoist Palace objected to her taking the position of Palace Master as a woman. No wonder. Lu Yi roughly understood what was going on. Strictly speaking, the woman in front of him should be the child of destiny of this realm. Just like Yi Lu in the Soaring Dragon Realm, it was just that the disaster that the Soaring Dragon Realm was facing was too fierce. It was the invasion of an entire realm. Therefore, even if Yi Lu was blessed with luck and obtained the Dragon Emperor, he was unable to turn the tide. In the great battle, Yi Lu died and the Dragon Emperor was destroyed. The Wushuang continent had not reached such a level yet, but perhaps it was not far away. The more a realm was in danger of being destroyed, the more likely it was for a person like the Child of Destiny to be born. It was the reaction of heaven and earth when faced with a crisis. It was heaven and earth's way of saving itself. Since he was the Child of Destiny, he must be tainted with the origin of heaven and earth. Lu Yi had the broken origin of the soaring dragon realm, which gave Pang Huanin an inexplicable sense of trust. It could be said to be a kind of guidance from the unseen world, or it could be said to be the resonance of the origin of the two realms. At this point, Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat as he thought of another thing. Pang Huanin could feel this, but he could not. It was not because the broken origin of the soaring dragon realm was inferior to that of the Wushuang continent, but because the Wushuang continent had its own will of heaven and earth. The will of heaven and earth of the soaring dragon realm had long been destroyed with the destruction of the realm. Although the broken origin was obtained by Lu Yi, it would not give him any guidance. Pang Huanin was different from the Wushuang continent. However, based on the current situation, even if the Wushuang continent had its own will of heaven and earth, it should be in a hazy state. Or perhaps the original will of heaven and earth had become incomplete because of the destruction of the Wushuang continent. Therefore, it could only give Pang Huanin a trace of intangible guidance, which made her feel a sense of trust in the person in front of her. Lu Yi roughly understood why he and the others were sent here by the 9 prefectures Tianji. The world had been destroyed, and there was no way to save itself. The broken will of heaven and earth of the Wushuang continent should have been asking for help from the outside world. This message should have been captured by the 9 prefectures Tianji, which then located the Wushuang continent. Then, the 9 prefectures Tianji gathered the 9 most powerful cultivators of the Cloud River tier of this generation and sent them to the Wushuang continent at some cost. Lu Yi clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers use this app to read books aloud. Chapter 8:13. Of course, Lu Yi didn't know whether this was the case or not. It was just his own speculation. Maybe the 9 prefectures' heaven secret had found the broken Wushuang continent through some means. What did you do? Pang Huanin asked. She would feel uneasy if she didn't get to the bottom of this. She alone was related to the survival of the Ziwei Taoist palace. How could she not be vigilant when she felt an indelible sense of trust in someone she had never met before? Moreover, judging from what happened just now, the man in front of her had an inexplicable method to strengthen her trust in him. This was a little hard to understand. Lu Yi was silent, wondering if he should tell her the truth. Although the woman in front of him was young, she was obviously not easy to fool. Since he wanted to borrow the power of the Ziwei Taoist palace, it might be better to be honest with her. Of course, if she didn't suspect anything, there was no need to say too much. But now that Pang Huanin was suspicious, it was not good to continue hiding. Furthermore, if things develop smoothly, she will find out about our identities sooner or later. If I say that I'm not from this world, would you believe me? Lu Yi looked at Pang Huanin calmly. He saw a flash of surprise in her eyes, but it was quickly followed by relief. He was slightly surprised. You seem to have guessed it, Palace Master? Pang Huanin said, I did think of this possibility. According to the records of the Ziwei Taoist Palace, a long time ago, there were traces of extraterrestrial visitors in this world. You're so powerful, but you're not from the other 2 sects' secret realms, and the strongholds in the outside world don't have the resources to cultivate people like you. There's only one possibility, you're not from the Wushuang continent. Pang Huanin had thought of it before, but this thought just flashed through her mind. She didn't think it was possible. Even if there were records of extraterrestrial visitors in the Ziwei Taoist Palace's records, who knew if it was true or not? Moreover, even if there was such a thing, with the strength of Lu Yi and the others, how could they cross the 2 worlds? But now, it seemed that the most impossible thing was actually the truth. We're from a world called the 9 prefectures. Since he had decided to tell her everything, there was no need to hide anything. Pang Huanin also figured out their origin with Lu Ye's simple explanation. During this time, she did not interrupt and only listened quietly. It had to be said that this woman's temperament was very calm. No matter how unbelievable the information sounded, she could accept it calmly. Of course, Lu Yi didn't know how she analyzed it and what she thought. In the 9 states, there are many destroyed or broken realms that have turned into secret realms of various sizes. If the cultivators of the 9 states have the opportunity, they can enter them to gain experience. Pang Huanin frowned. In other words, our Wushuang continent is just a place for you 9 regions cultivators to gain experience? This was not something she could easily accept. Her ancestors had persisted for thousands of years to purge the corpse clan and restore peace to the world. But when it came to the other side, it was just a place for them to hone their skills. This made her suddenly feel that all these years of perseverance and the countless cultivators of the Dao Palace were nothing more than a joke. Lu Yi shook his head. The Wushuang continent is not the same as the secret realms of the 9 states. I haven't experienced many secret realms, but the others have. But whether it's me or the others, the Wushuang continent is very special because your realm hasn't been destroyed yet. If the realms that have turned into secret realms have been destroyed, what can the cultivators of the 9 states do after entering them? The 9 states Tianji is very powerful. Although those realms have been destroyed, they have the means to reappear all the people and things of a certain time period. We call it the space-time silhouette. In that time silhouette, the realm of the secret realm has not been destroyed, and the cultivators of the 9 states can do many things, such as finding a way to save that realm. He turned to look at Pang Huanin. This is also the reason why the 9 states Tianji sent the 9 of us here. Before Pang Huanin could say anything, Lu Yi continued. Not long ago, I experienced a secret realm and entered the space-time silhouette of a realm called the Soaring Dragon Realm. There, I did something that was recognized by the origin of heaven and earth of the Soaring Dragon Realm. The origin of heaven and earth? Pang Huanin raised her eyebrows slightly. This realm also has its own origin of heaven and earth. Perhaps it has already given birth to some vague consciousness. It has chosen you as its savior, and you are the child of destiny of this realm. I believe you should have felt something. Pang Huanin raised her hand and placed it on her chest, deep in thought. After a long while, she said, in other words, my trust in you is not my own idea, but the influence of the Wushuang continent's consciousness on me. That's right. Lu Yi nodded. Even if the consciousness of a realm is in an ignorant state, it can still know who can help it and who will harm it. Does Palace Master understand? Pang Huanin laughed and shook her head. What a fantasy! If someone else told her this, she would definitely think that person had lost his or her mind. However, when these words came from Lu Ye's mouth, she could not help but believe 70% of it. The remaining 30% was because she had cultivated her temperament and deliberately maintained vigilance. As for why I insisted on entering the secret realm of Mount Meru, after a moment of silence, Lu Yi asked, if Palace Master were to persuade them personally, would you be able to persuade Mount Meru to join forces and take the initiative to fight against the corpse race? Pang Huanin shook her head. Among the 3 great secret realms for the past 1,000 years, only our Ziwei Taoist Palace has been actively working to solve the problem of the corpse race in this realm. The Silver Snake Valley is a coward who only knows how to fight for power. On the surface, Mount Meru has spread the word that as long as the Silver Snake Valley agrees to take the initiative to attack, they will follow closely behind. However, in reality, they are also taking the path of self-preservation. They just don't want to offend our Taoist palace by saying that they can't count on the people of these 2 secret realms. If they had some courage, our Taoist palace wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. Speaking of this, Pang Huanin was a little resentful. She hated them for not fighting, was angry at them for not doing anything, and lamented their misfortune. So it's very difficult to join forces with them? Absolutely impossible. Then I'll have to go to Mount Meru. Lu Yi nodded. If Palace Master can find a way to send me to Mount Meru, I have a way to force them to take the initiative to fight against the corpse race. What do you mean? Pang Huanin's interest was immediately piqued. Her eyebrows danced. It's hard to say now. Lu Yi slowly shook his head. Pang Huanin stared at Lu Yi. Seeing that he was indifferent, she sneered, deliberately mystifying. As soon as the words left her mouth, she suddenly felt that her bearing was not quite right. She quickly adjusted her expression. Then, as if she had thought of something, Pang Huanin said, "Since fellow Taoist has already gone to Silver Snake Valley, doesn't that mean, at that time, Silver Snake Valley will no longer be in the mood to continue fighting for power? Even if they don't want to, they will have to stand up against the corpse race. What about my Dao Palace? Did fellow Taoist use some kind of method?" Pang Huanin's eyes narrowed slightly. The Dao Palace's situation is different from the other two. There's no need for that kind of method. I feel like you're lying to me. Pang Huanin frowned. Why would I? Lu Ye's face was full of righteousness. I've already confided in Palace Master. Why would I lie to you? Pang Huanin looked at him seriously for a moment, then nodded. I hope so. The mountain breeze blew gently, causing her clothes to flutter. Come with me tomorrow. I'll take you to Mount Meru. Pang Huanin suddenly made a decision. Lu Yi was not surprised that the Dao Palace had such a method. Thank you, Palace Master. If things are really as you say, then I'm just saving myself. The ones who should be thanking you are the cultivators of the Peerless Continent. Pang Huanin clasped her hands behind her back and tilted her head to look at Lu Yi. I've already agreed to your first two conditions. Can you tell me the third one? A woman's curiosity was very strong, even if she was the palace master. Lu Yi only spoke halfway during the banquet, but he had already whetted her appetite. After the matter is settled, I'll tell Palace Master in detail. But I don't think Palace Master will refuse. Pang Huanin's face was full of disdain. I hate people like you. You're so wishy-washy. You're not happy at all. She took a step and was already far away. Only her voice drifted over with the wind. We can't have too many people on this trip to Mount Meru. You can choose one person to go with you. Looking in the direction she left, Lu Yi smiled. The matter was settled. Lu Yi returned to his residence and summoned Lu Qing and the other two. He went straight to the point. Pang Huanin agreed to take me to Mount Meru tomorrow. Who among the three of you wants to go with me? They have a way to enter Mount Meru? Feng Ruli was shocked. At today's banquet, they said they didn't, but in the blink of an eye, they changed their minds. Sure enough, when you're outside, you can't easily trust others. But after thinking about it carefully, the Dao Palace didn't need to tell them about this matter. He wondered what method Lu Ye used to make the Dao Palace agree to this matter. Lu Qing frowned slightly. Will we have to use some special method to go to Mount Meru? I'm not sure. I didn't ask. Lu Yi shook his head. Pang Huanin only said that we can't have too many people. I can take one person with me. Ing Wuji shrank back, trying to reduce his presence as much as possible. Lu Qing said, if that's the case, I recommend Brother Ing. With that said, he and Feng Ruli moved to the left and right in tacit understanding, revealing Ing Wuji, who was quietly moving back. Lu Yi looked over. In his heart, Ing Wuji cursed Lu Qing's 18 generations of ancestors. We might have to scout out some information on this trip. Brother Ing, as a ghost cultivator, it'll be easier for you to do things, Lu Qing analyzed with a straight face. Ing Wuji, what do you think? Lu Yi asked. Of course, if you don't want to, I won't force you. I'm fine by myself. What can I think? How dare I think? He took 2 steps forward and said, Tianji sent the 9 of us here. Among the 9 of us, I'm the only one who's a ghost cultivator. When it comes to scouting out information, it naturally has to be me. I'll go with you. The main thing was that if he shrank back at this time, Lu Ye might hold a grudge against him, and his days in the future would be difficult. Chapter 8:14. The turbid sun shone brightly in all directions. 4 figures flew across the sky. They were Lu Yi, Pang Huanin, and the others. Lu Yi brought Ing Wuji with her, and Pang Huanin brought Elder Xiao with her. There were only 4 of them going to Mount Meru. Pang Huanin had told them not to bring too many people last night, so she naturally would not make a big fuss. The 2 of them walked in front, while Ing Wuji and Elder Xiao followed behind. However, unlike Lu Yi and Pang Huanin who were chatting happily, the two at the back were frowning. There was no need to mention Ying Wuji. If possible, he wouldn't want to go with Lu Yi. He could feel that this trip to Meru Mountain wouldn't be a good one. As for Elder Xiao, when Pang Huanin told him about this last night, he strongly opposed it. The fact that the Taoist palace had the calculation and opening methods of the other two secret realms was an absolute secret. Even in the Ziwei Taoist palace, only he and Pang Huanin knew about it. It was passed down from generation to generation. If this matter was exposed, the other two secret realms would definitely not feel at ease. Furthermore, Pang Huanin was the one leading the expedition to Mount Meru. If things went wrong, the two great secret realms of the human race would become hostile toward each other. If Mount Meru became wary of them, then the efforts of the Holy Ji Palace over the past 1,000 years would go down the drain. However, no matter how he persuaded, Pang Huanin remained unmoved. Elder Xiao had no choice but to follow orders. He really could not figure out why the palace lord would do this. When he looked up, the two people in front of him were walking side by side. They had not known each other for long, but they seemed to be very close. Elder Xiao's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the palace lord? But then again, which woman did not yearn for love? The palace lord was at this age, and no one had caught her eye before. This young man named Wuxia was undoubtedly more outstanding than anyone else, so it was not surprising that the palace lord liked him. If they really competed, it did not seem to be a big deal. The Taoist palace would have a group of strong reinforcements. At this thought, Elder Xiao was slightly relieved. They rushed all the way without stopping. It was not until noon the next day that the four of them arrived at the lake. In front of the lake, Pang Huanin stopped and looked around. She turned back and asked, "Elder Xiao, is this the place?" Elder Xiao pinched his fingers and calculated silently. After a moment, he nodded and said, "This is the place, in 2 hours." "What a coincidence!" Pang Huanin said casually, "Then let's rest for 2 hours." Along the way, all of them were exhausted. Perhaps there would be some conflicts in Mount Meru. After all, they had forced their way through. Even if Pang Huanin personally led the team, Mount Meru would not let things go as they were wary of the fledgling Dao Palace. They found a spot by the lake and sat down to recover. Seeing that Lu Yi, Ying Wuji, and the others had consumed high-quality spirit pills, Pang Huanin could not help but believe Lu Ye's words. This kind of elixir was not something that the Wushuang continent could refine. Regardless of appearance or quality, it was much better than the Wushuang continent. He couldn't help but feel a little envious. What kind of world was the 9 prefectures? Unfortunately, he probably wouldn't have the chance to go to that world in this lifetime. Soon, 2 hours had passed, and the four of them were once again above the lake. Elder Xiao looked at Pang Huanin and made a final inquiry. "Palace Master, if we really do that, Mount Meru might not let this matter rest." Pang Huanin clasped her hands behind her back and said indifferently, "So what? Even Lu Zhenguan won't dare to fall out with me." Pang Huanin's words were a little bullying. However, Elder Xiao already knew what his palace master was thinking, so he didn't say anything more. Instead, he took out a treasure that looked like a round ring. The ring was like a bracelet, shining with golden light. Elder Xiao activated his spiritual energy and gently flicked his fingers. Crisp, jingling sounds kept coming out. Then he threw the golden ring into the lake. The ring spun and fell on the surface of the water, but it didn't sink. Instead, it sank into the water, and layers of royal color rippled out. Looking at it, the golden ring seemed to be growing rapidly. As the spiritual energy vibrated, the jingling sounds kept coming out. At the same time, at the entrance of Mount Meru's secret realm, many cultivators on duty had gathered. Unlike the solemn atmosphere in the past, today's place was full of joy as if something happy was about to happen. Indeed, there was something happy because the Mountain Master's wedding was in 3 days. The news was spread the day before yesterday, and the entire Mount Meru's secret realm was shocked. Over the years, although the Mountain Master didn't lack women by his side, he had never thought of marrying anyone. The Mountain Master even said that if he were to marry in this life, no one would be able to catch his eye unless Pang Huanin of the Ziwei Taoist Palace was willing to marry him. However, everyone knew that it was impossible. After all, Pang Huanin was the palace master of the Ziwei Daoist Palace. How could she marry into Mount Meru? Not to mention, that woman was extremely powerful. If she were to marry into Mount Meru, the mountain master might not be able to subdue her. Therefore, when the news of the mountain master's wedding spread, many people were happy, but some also found it unbelievable. They didn't know what kind of woman could make the mountain master let go of his obsession with Pang Huanin. I've seen that woman before. She's indeed a rare beauty, a cultivator said while chatting. Oh, Brother Zhao, have you seen our future mountain master's wife? Which family does she belong to? Someone asked. The situation in Mount Meru was somewhat similar to the Silver Snake Valley. The inheritance had long been broken. Instead of a sect, the secret realm was controlled by large and small families. However, unlike the Silver Snake Valley, there were no 5 major families here. There was only one powerful family, and that was the Lu family. Therefore, the Lu family had controlled Mount Meru for many years. The Lu Zhengguan that Pang Huanin mentioned was the current Lu family master and also the mountain master of Mount Meru. If Lu Zhengguan wanted to marry, he would definitely choose a woman from other families. It was a strategy that the Lu family pursued for many years to consolidate their ruling position through marriage. Therefore, everyone had been guessing which family the woman belonged to. Unfortunately, the higher-ups seemed to be very tight-lipped, and no definite information was leaked. The cultivator surnamed Zhao shook his head and said, "She's not from any family. She's from the outside. She's one of the 2 women who were accepted into our secret realm a few days ago. Brother Sure has seen her before. He and I were on duty that day." On the side, a stocky man, who was the cultivator surnamed Sure, looked at the cultivator surnamed Zhao and said, "There were 2 women who were accepted that day. I wonder which one is the mountain master going to marry?" The cultivator surnamed Zhao said, "As far as I know, it should be the one who's as gentle as water and has a tranquil temperament." Someone was puzzled. How beautiful is this woman? Even the mountain master wants to marry her. The cultivator surnamed Zhao shook his head. If it's just a beauty, why would the mountain master do this? There's never a lack of beauties around the mountain master. He seemed to have some sources of information that others didn't have, so he knew more than the others. Rebirth, the great age of waves. As he spoke, he looked left and right as if he was afraid that the walls had ears. Then, he said in a low voice, "We brothers are just chatting here. The words that come out of my mouth will enter your ears. It's fine if you hear it, but don't spread it." Seeing him like this, the cultivators on duty gathered here became interested. Someone urged, "Brother Zhao, don't you know what kind of people we brothers are? Don't worry, no one will spread what you said here. If anyone dares to do this, none of us will agree." Yes. The cultivator surnamed Zhao said, "I heard from my old master that the woman is good at detoxifying poisons." The group was stunned. Someone laughed. "What kind of skill is that?" Someone seemed to have thought of something and said seriously, "Brother Zhao, what kind of poison do you mean by detoxifying?" The cultivator surnamed Zhao's expression was solemn. He said word by word, "Origin corpse poison." Everyone was silent. Only the wind whistled. Pairs of eyes looked at the cultivator surnamed Zhao in disbelief. "Brother Zhao? Is this a joke?" Someone was bewildered. Cultivator Zhao Xing shook his head and said, "When I first heard about it, I didn't think it was true. There is no cure for the original source corpse poison. This is something that everyone knows. Moreover, those who are infected with the original source corpse poison will basically be turned into a member of the corpse race. Therefore, whenever we brothers are outside, if anyone is infected with the original source corpse poison, we can only commit suicide as soon as possible. Our corpses have to be cleaned up as well." How is that possible? Some people didn't believe it. After so many years, no one has been able to cure origin corpse poison. Even the Ziwei Dao Palace is helpless. How can a foreign woman solve such a problem? Then, do you know why those 2 women were taken to our Mount Meru? The cultivator surnamed Zhao continued, "It is because our people encountered corpse clan members outside and were infected with origin corpse poison. They were saved by that woman and were then taken to Mount Meru. After that, the mountain lord ordered people to bring corpse poison and tested it on the spot. Only then did he confirm the woman's ability. If not, why would the mountain lord want to marry her? Everyone should know that after so many years, countless seniors of Mount Meru have died because of origin corpse poison. It is because there is no cure for origin corpse poison. But if there is a cure, then when we face Corpse Clan in the future, we won't have to be restrained. If that is the case, then it is reasonable for the mountain lord to marry this woman. Someone said thoughtfully, how can such a talent be let go? And if they want her to work for them, then they have to find a way to make her and Mount Meru's interests as one. Moreover, that woman is also a great beauty. The mountain lord is naturally moved. So, the mountain lord didn't marry her for his own sake, but for Mount Meru's sake. Exactly. While chatting, the significance of the mountain lord marrying a wife has risen to the height of making a fortune for Mount Meru. Everyone couldn't help but admire their mountain lord and become even more curious about the future mountain lord's wife. Fortunately, the wedding day is 3 days later. At that time, they will be able to see the truth. Click to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.